The platform at Hollow Creek Station was a desolate slab of concrete, bathed in the sickly glow of a single sodium lamp. October's chill gnawed at Clara Henshaw's fingertips as she stood, duffel bag slung over her shoulder, staring at the beast before her. The Midnight Express loomed like a predator, its black locomotive exhaling steam that curled into the night like spectral tendrils. Its cars, painted a faded maroon, creaked as if impatient to move, but it was the last carriage that held her gaze. Pristine, untouched by time, its windows were voids swallowing light. A padlock gleamed on its door, heavy and cold. Clara's breath fogged the air, her hazel eyes narrowing. She'd heard the stories, passengers vanishing, whispers of ghosts, but she didn't believe in fairy tales. A journalist for the American Chronicle, Clara thrived on dismantling myths. This train, with its grim reputation, was just another puzzle to solve. She'd check her watch, 11:55 p.m., 2025. The train would depart in 5 minutes, slicing through Nebraska's plains toward Raleigh. 12 hours. Plenty of time to dig. Her editor, Tom, had practically begged her to take this story. "People love a good ghost train," he'd said, shoving a file into her hands. The file was heavy with names. Margaret Klein, 1947. Harold Voss, 1962. The Dawson couple, 1998. All linked to the last carriage, all gone. Clara had rolled her eyes, but packed her notebook. If there was truth here, she'd find it. If not, she'd write a piece on small-town paranoia and call it day. The platform was empty save for a station master, his face half hidden under a cap, who muttered, "Mind the last car, miss." Clara smirked, assuming he was in on the local legend. She climbed aboard, the train's interior a relic of faded opulence. Velvet seats, scuffed wood panels, and brass lamps gave it a claustrophobic charm. The air carried a faint tang, like ozone before a storm. Clara chose a seat in the third car, her boots scuffing the carpet, and scanned her fellow passengers. A salesman snored softly, a grandmother knitted, a kid with earbuds stared out the window. Ordinary, unremarkable. Yet, as the train whistled and lurched forward, a shiver ran through her. Not fear, she told herself, just the cold. The conductor appeared, a wiry man named E. Caldwell, his uniform crisp but his eyes too bright, like he hadn't slept in years. "Tickets," he rasped, pausing at Clara's seat. She handed over her stub, seizing her chance. "Heard this train's got a reputation," she said, voice light. "The last carriage, especially." Caldwell's jaw tightened, his fingers twitching. "Stay away from that car," he said, leaning close, his breath sour. "It ain't for you." He moved on before she could respond, leaving her with a prickle of unease. Clara jotted his words in her notebook, circling "ain't for you." Dramatic, but it piqued her curiosity. Midnight came, and the train's rhythm settled into a hypnotic clack-clack. Most passengers dozed, their breaths fogging the windows. Clara couldn't sleep. She slipped into the corridor, her boots silent, and approached the door to the next car. It opened with a groan, revealing a dim passage that smelled of mildew and something older, like damp earth. At the far end was another door, heavier. Its handle rusted. The last carriage. She pressed her ear to it, expecting nothing. Instead, a faint whisper drifted through, like a voice submerged in water, calling her name. Clara froze, her pulse hammering. She wasn't imagining it. She reached for the handle, her fingers grazing cold metal when the train lurched. The lights died, plunging her into blackness. From the last carriage came a sound, a low, guttural moan, not human, not animal, but something else. The lights flickered back, and Clara was alone, her hands still on the handle. The door was locked, unyielding. She stepped back, her breath shallow, and noticed something on the floor. A black leather glove, pristine, warm to the touch. It hadn't been there moments ago. Clara's stomach twisted as she tucked it into her pocket. She glanced at the door's dark window, her reflection pale, and for the first time, doubt crept in. The Midnight Express wasn't just a story. Something was in that carriage, and it knew she was here. As the train barreled through the night, Clara returned to her seat, her mind racing. The glove, Caldwell's warning. That moan, they were pieces of a puzzle she didn't yet understand. She opened her notebook, sketching a rough map of the train, marking the last carriage with a question mark. The other passengers slept, oblivious, but Clara felt eyes on her, a weight in the air. She looked toward the corridor, half expecting to see a figure in the shadows. There was nothing, yet the feeling lingered. Whatever haunted this train wasn't done with her. This was no myth to debunk. It was a mystery that could swallow her whole. And Clara Henshaw, for all her skepticism, was ready to chase it to the end of the line. Chapter 1. The Last Ticket. Clara Henshaw stood on the Hollow Creek platform, the October wind biting at her knuckles as she gripped her duffel bag. The Midnight Express loomed before her, its black locomotive hissing steam that coiled into the night like ghostly serpents. The train's cars, painted a faded maroon, groaned as if eager to flee the desolate station. But the last carriage stood apart. Its paint gleamed unnaturally, its windows black voids that seemed to swallow the feeble glow of the platform's single sodium lamp. A heavy padlock secured its door, the metal glinting with a cold, almost mocking shine. Clara's hazel eyes narrowed, her braids swaying as she tilted her head. She'd heard the tales, passengers vanishing into that carriage, never to return, but Clara didn't believe in ghosts. A journalist for the American Chronicle, she'd spent 10 years dismantling superstitions. Haunted houses, cursed relics, possessed trinkets, she debunked them all. This train, with its grim legend, was just another story begging to be unraveled. The station was a crumbling shack, its paint peeling like dead skin, the air thick with the scent of rust and frost. Clara checked her watch. 11:55 p.m., October 17th, 2025. 5 minutes until departure. The Midnight Express would carve a 12-hour path through Nebraska's plains to Raleigh, North Carolina, through fields and forests where no one lingered after dark. Her editor, Tom, had thrust a file into her hands a week ago, his eyes gleaming. The Midnight Express, Clara. People disappear on that train. The last carriage specifically. Its goal. The file listed names. Margaret Klein, a schoolteacher, 1947. Harold Voss, a banker, 1962. Emily and Mark Dawson, a couple, 1998. Dozens more, all tied to that locked car, all gone without a trace. Clara had scoffed, but the weight of those names stuck with her. If there was a rational explanation, human trafficking, a serial killer, a scam, she'd find it. If not, she'd write a piece on small-town folklore and move on. The platform was empty except for a station master, his face shadowed under a worn cap. He shuffled past, muttering, "Mind the last car, miss." Clara's lips twitched into a smirk. Locals always played up their legends. She climbed aboard, the train's interior a time capsule of faded grandeur. Velvet seats, scuffed and threadbare, lined the third car. Polished wood paneling reflected the dim glow of brass lamps, and the air carried a sharp tang, like ozone after a storm. Clara chose a seat near the window, her duffel at her feet, and scanned the other passengers. A salesman in a rumpled suit dozed, his tie askew. An elderly woman knitted a red scarf, her needles clicking rhythmically. A young man with earbuds stared out the window, his reflection pale against the dark glass. Ordinary people, oblivious to the train's reputation. Clara's fingers itched for a notebook. She'd start with them, gauge their awareness, then track down the conductor. The train whistled, a low, mournful sound, and lurched forward. The platform slid away, replaced by endless fields shrouded in mist. Clara felt a subtle shift, a wrongness in the air. The lights flickered just for a second, and the temperature dropped. She zipped her jacket, chalking it up to the autumn chill, but her pulse quickened. She pulled out her notebook, jotting initial observations. Hollow Creek Station, dilapidated. Last carriage locked, pristine. Station master's warning. Folklore? She underlined last carriage, her mind already spinning theories. Mechanical failure trapping passengers? A hidden compartment for smuggling? She needed to see that car up close. The conductor appeared, a wiry man with a face like weathered leather. His uniform was crisp, but his eyes were too bright, darting as if searching for something. A name tag read E. Caldwell. "Tickets, please," he rasped, his voice low and gravelly. Clara handed over her stub, seizing her chance. "First time on the Midnight Express," she said, keeping her tone casual. "Heard some stories about the last carriage." Caldwell's hand froze mid-motion, his smile tightening. For a moment, she thought he'd ignore her. Then he leaned closer, his breath sour and warm. "Stay away from that car, miss. It's not for the living." The words hung between them, heavy, before he straightened and moved on, his boots thudding against the carpet. Clara's pen scratched furiously. Conductor E. Caldwell, cryptic warning. Scared or hiding something? She watched him disappear into the next car, her mind racing. His warning was theatrical, but those eyes, haunted, almost gnawed at her. She glanced toward the corridor at the rear of the car, a narrow passage leading to the next carriage, and beyond that, the last one. The door at the corridor's end was closed, its frosted glass glinting faintly. Clara squinted, certain she saw a shadow shift behind it. A trick of the light, she told herself, but her fingers tightened around her pen. She wasn't here to chase shadows, but to find facts. Still, Caldwell's words echoed. Not for the living. Ridiculous. Yet they stirred a flicker of unease she couldn't shake. By midnight, the train's rhythm was hypnotic, the clack of wheels blending with the hum of distant snores. Most passengers slept, their breaths fogging the windows. Clara couldn't rest. She slipped into the corridor, her boots silent on the worn carpet, and approached the door to the next car. It opened with a creak, revealing a dim passage that smelled of mildew and something older, like damp earth. The air grew colder, heavier, as she moved toward the far end, where a heavier door waited. The last carriage. Its handle was rusted, its window dark. Clara pressed her ear to the wood, expecting silence. Instead, a faint whisper drifted through, like a voice submerged in water, calling her name. Clara. Her heart pounded, but she didn't pull away. She wasn't imagining it. She reached for the handle, her fingers brushing cold metal, when the train lurched violently. The lights went out, plunging her into darkness. A low, guttural moan rose from the other side of the door. Not human, not animal, but something else, something that crawled under her skin. Clara's breath caught, her hand frozen on the handle. The darkness was absolute, pressing against her eyes. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers trembling, but before she could turn on the flashlight, the lights flickered back. She was alone, the corridor empty, the door locked and unyielding. Her chest heaved as she stepped back, her mind scrambling for an explanation. A prank? A recording? But then she saw it. A black leather glove on the floor, pristine, its fingers curled as if reaching for her. It hadn't been there before. She knelt, her hand hovering over it. The leather was warm, impossibly so, as if its owner had just dropped it. Clara's stomach twisted as she picked it up, her eyes darting to the door's dark window. Her reflection stared back, pale and wide-eyed. But for a split second, she swore another face flickered behind hers, hollow, eyeless, grinning. She stumbled back, clutching the glove, her skepticism fraying. The moan, the whisper, the glove, they weren't tricks of the mind. Something was in that carriage, something that knew her name. Clara shoved the glove into her pocket and hurried back to her seat, her heart racing. The other passengers slept, oblivious, but the air felt thicker now, charged with a presence she couldn't see. She opened her notebook, her hand shaking as she wrote. Last carriage door, whisper, moan, glove. Not alone. The Midnight Express wasn't just a train. It was a trap, and she'd walked right into it. But Clara Henshaw didn't run. She'd find the truth, no matter what it cost. Clara Henshaw sank into her seat, the black leather glove burning a hole in her pocket. The Midnight Express hummed along, its wheels clacking a relentless rhythm through the Nebraska night. But the air in the third car felt wrong. Too heavy, too still. The salesman's snores and the grandmother's clicking needles were distant now, drowned by the echo of that guttural moan from the last carriage. Clara's notebook lay open on her lap. Her last entry. Last carriage door, whisper, moan, glove. Not alone, staring back like a warning. She was a journalist, trained to chase facts, not phantoms, but the warmth of the glove and the whisper of her name gnawed at her logic. She pressed her fingers to her temples, forcing her breathing to steady. There had to be an explanation. A hidden speaker, a crew member playing tricks, anything but the impossible. Yet the memory of that eyeless face in the window lingered, a splinter in her mind. The train's lights flickered again, casting long shadows across the velvet seats. Clara glanced at the corridor, half expecting to see the door to the last carriage swing open. It remained closed, but the frosted glass seemed to pulse, as if something pressed against it from the other side. She shook her head, muttering, "Get a grip, Henshaw." She needed information, not paranoia. The conductor, E. Caldwell, was her next target. His warning, "It's not for the living," was too specific, too rehearsed. He knew something, and she'd pry it out of him. But first, she needed to understand the passengers. If the last carriage was a trap, someone else might have seen or heard something. Clara scanned the car. The salesman was awake now, rubbing his eyes and sipping from a flask. The grandmother had set her knitting aside, her hands folded as she stared out the window. The young man with earbuds was gone, his seat empty, his backpack still slumped against the armrest. Clara frowned. She hadn't seen him leave. The train hadn't stopped since Hollow Creek, and the only way out of the car was through the corridor she'd just left. Her pulse quickened. She stood, her boots soft on the carpet, and approached his seat. The backpack was cheap canvas, with a keychain shaped like a skull. She hesitated, then nudged it open with her pen. Inside were a water bottle, a dog-eared sci-fi novel, and a crumpled ticket stub for the Midnight Express. Dated today. Nothing unusual, yet the absence of its owner felt like a puzzle piece missing. Looking for something? The voice was sharp, startling her. The grandmother peered up, her eyes glinting like polished stones. Clara straightened, forcing a smile. Just noticed the kid's gone. Didn't see him leave. The woman's lips pursed, her fingers twitching as if itching for her needles. "Folks wander on trains," she said, her voice low. "Some don't come back." Clara's skin prickled. "You talking about the last carriage?" she asked, keeping her tone light. The woman's gaze darted to the corridor, then back to Clara. "You're the journalist, aren't you? Poking around where you shouldn't." Clara blinked, caught off guard. "How'd you?" The woman cut her off with a wave. "Small towns talk. Heard you were coming to stir up trouble. Leave the last car be, girl. It's out of hunger." Before Clara could press her, the woman turned back to the window, her reflection pale against the dark glass. Clara returned to her seat, her mind racing. The grandmother knew more than she let on, but her warning echoed Caldwell's, vague, ominous, designed to scare. Clara wasn't buying it, but the empty seat nagged at her. She jotted a note. "Young man missing? Check with conductor." She needed to move, to do something before doubt crept in further. Slipping her notebook into her jacket, she headed for the dining car, hoping to find Caldwell. The corridor between cars was colder now, the air thick with that same mildew and earth scent. The train swayed, and Clara steadied herself against the wall, her fingers brushing something sticky. She pulled her hand back, expecting grime, but her fingertips were clean. The sensation lingered, though, like a memory of something unclean. The dining car was a step up from the third car, with white tablecloths and crystal glassware that clinked softly with the train's motion. A handful of passengers sat scattered, nursing coffee or picking at late-night sandwiches. Caldwell stood at the far end, checking a clipboard, his back to her. Clara approached, her boots clicking on the polished floor. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, her voice firm. He turned, his bright eyes narrowing. "Miss Henshaw, shouldn't you be sleeping?" She ignored the jab. "A passenger's missing. Young guy, earbuds, third car. His stuff's still there." Caldwell's expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened on the clipboard. "People move around. He'll turn up. Clara leaned closer, lowering her voice. Like the others who moved around into the last carriage, Caldwell's jaw clenched, and for a moment, she thought he'd snap. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice a harsh whisper. "You're a smart one, aren't you? Think you'll write a pretty story and be done? That car's no story. It's a grave, and it's got your name on it if you keep pushing." He brushed past her, his shoulder clipping hers, and disappeared into the next car. Clara stood frozen, her heart pounding. His words weren't just a warning, they were a threat. She glanced at the other passengers, but none met her eye. The air in the dining car felt thinner, as if the train itself were holding its breath. Back in the third car, Clara couldn't shake Caldwell's words. A grave. She pulled the glove from her pocket, turning it over in her hands. Its leather was soft, well-worn, but there were no initials, no clues to its owner. She tucked it away and opened her notebook. Sketching a timeline. 11:55 p.m., board train. 12:15 a.m., hear whisper moan. 12:20 a.m., find glove. 12:45 a.m., young man missing. The pieces didn't fit, not yet, but they were connected. She needed to get into that carriage, locked or not. The train jolted, and the lights dimmed, casting the car in a sickly yellow glow. Clara's eyes flicked to the corridor. The door to the next car was ajar now, swaying with the train's motion. She hadn't left it open. She stood, a duffel bag left behind, and moved toward the corridor. The air grew colder with each step, her breath visible in faint clouds. The door creaked as she pushed it wider, revealing the dim passage to the last carriage. The heavy door at the far end was still locked, but something was different. A faint light flickered behind the window, like a candle's flame, casting jagged shadows on the walls. Clara's mouth went dry. She took a step closer, then another, her boots echoing in the silence. The whisper came again, softer this time, but unmistakable. "Clara, come." She froze, her hand hovering over the handle. The light flickered faster, and the shadows moved, forming shapes, hands, faces, eyes. The moan returned, louder, vibrating through the door and into her bones. She yanked her hand back, her chest heaving. The light vanished, plunging the passage into darkness. The train's rhythm slowed, as if it, too, were watching. Clara backed away, her eyes locked on the door. Something scratched from the other side, slow and deliberate, like nails on wood. She turned and hurried back to the third car, her heart hammering. The passengers were still there, unchanged, but the young man's backpack was gone. Not moved, not misplaced, gone as if it had never been. Clara sank into her seat, her notebook trembling in her hands. She wrote, flickering light, shadows, scratching. Backpack missing. Last carriage alive. The Midnight Express wasn't just haunted. It was hunting. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Dark. Clara Henshaw's fingers trembled as she clutched her notebook. The words "Last Carriage Alive" scrawled in jagged ink. The Midnight Express barreled through the Nebraska night, its wheels grinding a relentless cadence that did nothing to calm her racing heart. The third car's dim lights cast long shadows across the velvet seats, and the air felt thicker now, laced with a metallic tang that clung to her throat. The black leather glove in her pocket was a leaden weight, its warmth unnatural, like a pulse against her hip. The missing backpack, the flickering light, the scratching from the last carriage, they weren't coincidences. Clara was a journalist, trained to dissect the world into facts, but the train was unraveling her certainty, thread by thread. She glanced at the corridor, its door now closed, but the memory of those shadowed faces behind the last carriage's window gnawed at her. Whatever was in there knew her name, and it wanted her closer. The other passengers seemed oblivious, cocooned in their own worlds. The salesman sipped from his flask, his eyes glassy. The grandmother resumed her knitting, the red scarf pooling in her lap like spilled blood. Clara's gaze lingered on the empty seat where the young man had been. No backpack, no trace, as if he'd been erased. She forced herself to breathe, to think. Caldwell's threat, "It's a grave," echoed in her mind, but she wasn't ready to run. Not yet. If the last carriage was a trap, There had to be clues among the passengers in their stories. Their fears. She needed to listen, to observe before confronting Caldwell again. His fear was real, and fear always hid secrets. Clara tucked her notebook into her jacket and stood, her boots soft on the carpet as she moved toward the grandmother. The old woman's needles paused, her eyes flicking up, sharp and unyielding. "Can't stay still, can you?" she said, her voice low, almost a hiss. Clara forced a smile, sliding into the seat across from her. "Just curious," she said, keeping her tone light. "You mentioned the last carriage earlier, so it's got a hunger. Care to share the story?" The grandmother's lips twitched, as if weighing whether to speak. She leaned forward, her scarf brushing the table between them. "You're not the first to ask, girl. Won't be the last. That car's been taking folks since the train's first run. 1923, they say. A derailment out in Blackthorn Valley. Dozens died, trapped in the last car. Their screams still linger. If you listen close." Clara's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression neutral, jotting 1923 derailment, Blackthorn Valley in her notebook. "A ghost story," she said, testing the waters. "Every town's got one." The grandmother's eyes narrowed, her needles resuming their rhythm. "Call it what you want. I've ridden this train 40 years. Seen people board that car, all cocky like you. Never saw Inglevi." She paused, her gaze drifting to the corridor. "Last year, a girl, maybe 20, went poking around. Found her coat by the door. Nothing else. Train don't forget, and it don't forgive." Clara's stomach twisted, but she pressed on. "You ever see anything? Shadows, lights." The woman's hand stilled, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I hear 'em at night, when the train's quiet. Whispers, like they're calling you to join him. Stay away, journalist. You're marked already." Clara leaned back, her mind racing. The grandmother's story was steeped in folklore, but the details, 1923, Blackthorn Valley, the coat, were specific enough to check. She needed records, newspaper clippings, anything to ground this in reality. "Thanks for the warning," she said, standing. The woman didn't respond, her eyes fixed on the window, with a night pressed against the glass like a living thing. Clara returned to her seat, her notebook open again. She added, "Grandmother's story, derailment, whispers." "Marked?" The word marked sent a chill down her spine, but she shoved it aside. "Superstition. Nothing more." The train's rhythm shifted, slowing as it curved through a forested stretch, the trees outside clawing at the sky. Clara glanced at the salesman, who was muttering to himself. His flask empty. She approached, her voice soft. "Rough night." He looked up, his face flushed, eyes bloodshot. "This damn train," he slurred, "gives me the creeps. You hear that hum?" Clara frowned, listening. Beneath the wheel's clack was a low vibration, almost imperceptible like a heartbeat. "Just the engine," she said, but her confidence wavered. The salesman shook his head. "Nah, it's coming from the back. That last car. I walked by it once years ago. Felt like something was watching me. Never again." He took a shaky breath, his fingers trembling. "You're the reporter, right? Don't go near it. It's wrong." Clara nodded, her pen scratching. "Salesman, hum from last carriage, fear of being watched." The passengers' stories were aligning, painting a picture of a carriage that wasn't just locked, but alive, aware. She needed to see it again to test its pull. The train jolted, and the lights dimmed, casting the car in a sickly glow. Clara's eyes darted to the corridor. The door was ajar again, swaying slightly, as if inviting her. She stood, her heart pounding, and moved toward it, the glove in her pocket heavier now, almost tugging her forward. The air grew colder as she entered the passage, the mildew scent stronger, mixed with something sweeter, like rotting fruit. The door to the last carriage loomed ahead, its window dark but not empty. A faint glow flickered within, not a candle but something colder, like moonlight on ice. Clara stopped a few feet away, her breath visible in the chill. The hum the salesman mentioned was louder here, vibrating through the floor into her bones. She reached into her pocket, pulling out the glove, as if it might anchor her. The leather was warmer now, almost hot, and for a moment, she swore it twitched in her hand. She dropped it, gasping, and it landed near the door, its fingers splayed like a plea. The whisper came again, clearer, a chorus of voices overlapping. Clara, open, join us. Her name, woven into the sound, felt like a hook in her chest. She took a step closer, then another, her hand trembling as it reached for the handle. The glow intensified, and shadows moved within the carriage, tall, thin, their edges blurring like smoke. One pressed against the window, its face a smudge of hollow eyes and a gaping mouth, and Clara's knees buckled. The train lurched, and the lights flared, snapping her back. The glow was gone, the window dark, the shadows vanished. But the glove was no longer on the floor. Clara's breath hitched as she scanned the passage, finding nothing. The door was locked, unyielding, but a new sound replaced the hum, a soft, rhythmic tapping like fingers on glass, coming from inside the carriage. She backed away, her heart hammering, until she was back in the third car, collapsing into her seat. The passengers hadn't moved, but the grandmother's eyes met hers, knowing, almost pitying. Clara opened her notebook, her hand shaking as she wrote. Glow, shadows, voices, glove gone. Tapping. Carriage wants me. The Midnight Express wasn't just haunted. It was calling her, and she wasn't sure she could resist. The tapping from the last carriage echoed in Clara Henshaw's mind like a metronome, each beat tightening the knot in her chest. She sat rigid in the third car of the Midnight Express. Her notebook opened but untouched, her hands clenched in her lap. The train's wheels clacked through the Nebraska night, slicing through a forest where moonlight barely pierced the canopy. The air was colder now, sharp with that rotting fruit sweetness that made her stomach churn. The black leather glove was gone, vanished as if the carriage had claimed it, and with it, a piece of her resolve. Clara's hazel eyes flicked to the corridor, its door still ajar, a dark invitation she wasn't ready to accept. Not yet. She was a journalist, damn it, not some wide-eyed believer in ghost stories. But the voices, Clara, open, join us, had burrowed into her, their chorus a hook she couldn't shake. The carriage wasn't just alive. It was hungry, and it wanted her. The other passengers were statues in the dim light. The salesman slumped in his seat, his flask empty, muttering about the hum only he seemed to hear. The grandmother knitted, her red scarf longer now, its threads glinting like veins. Clara's gaze lingered on her, the old woman's earlier words, "You're marked already," hanging heavy. Marked for what? The 1923 derailment in Blackthorn Valley, the whispers, the vanishings. It was all connected, but the pieces were scattered, buried in the train's cursed bones. Clara needed more than folklore. She needed evidence, something tangible to anchor her spiraling thoughts. The grandmother knew something, and Clara wasn't done with her. But first, she had to move, to shake the paralysis creeping into her limbs. She stood, her boots scuffing the carpet, and approached the old woman again. The needles paused, the grandmother's eyes glinting like polished flint. "Back for more?" she said, her voice a dry rasp. Clara kept her tone steady, though her pulse betrayed her. "You mentioned Blackthorn Valley. 1923. What happened there?" "No stories, facts." The woman's lips twitched, as if amused by Clara's defiance. She set her knitting aside, the scarf pooling in her lap. "Facts, you say? All right, journalist." The Midnight Express derailed on its maiden run, November 3rd, 1923. Blackthorn Valley, mile marker 47. Last carriage took the worst of it, crushed, trapped 30 souls inside. Fire followed, slow and cruel. They screamed for hours, but no one came. Papers called it a tragedy. Locals called it a curse. Clara's pen scratched furiously. Derailment, November 3rd, 1923, mile 47, 30 dead, fire. "Why a curse?" she pressed. The grandmother leaned closer, her breath sour. One of them, a woman, swore vengeance as she burned. Said the train never rest, and neither would those who rode it. "You feel her now, don't you? In the air, in your bones." Clara's skin prickled, but she held the woman's gaze. A name. Who was she? The grandmother's smile was thin, almost cruel. Eleanor Vance. Conductor's wife, betrayed by him. That's all you'll get from me. Ask Caldwell if you're so brave. She turned back to her knitting, dismissing Clara with a flick of her wrist. Clara retreated to her seat, her mind racing. Eleanor Vance, conductor's wife, betrayed. The name was a key, but to what? Caldwell's ancestor, maybe tied to the train's first tragedy. She needed to find him, but the thought of facing him after his threat, "It's got your name on it," made her hesitate. The tapping from the last carriage had stopped, but its absence was worse. Like a predator gone silent before the strike. The train slowed, its rhythm faltering as it entered a foggy stretch of Blackthorn Valley. The windows fogged, obscuring the twisted trees outside, and the hum the salesman had mentioned grew louder, vibrating through the floor. Clara's notebook trembled in her hands as she added, "Eleanor Vance, curse, betrayal." Hum louder in Valley. She glanced at the salesman, who was wide awake now, his face pale as he stared at the corridor. "You hear it, don't you?" he whispered, his voice shaking. "It's calling." Clara followed his gaze, her heart pounding. The door to the next car was wide open now, the passage beyond swallowed in shadow. A faint glow flickered at the far end, where the last carriage waited. Not moonlight, not a lamp, but something colder, pulsing like a heartbeat. Clara stood, drawn to the corridor despite every instinct screaming to stay put. The air grew colder with each step, her breath clouding in front of her. The mildew and rot scent was overpowering, clogging her throat. She reached the heavy door to the last carriage, its window dark but alive with that eerie glow. The hum was deafening now, a low drone that rattled her teeth. She pressed her hand to the door, expecting cold metal, but it was warm, almost pliant like skin. The voices returned, a cacophony of whispers. "Clara, Eleanor, open." Her name tangled with another, and she froze, the grandmother's story crashing back. Eleanor Vance, the betrayed wife, her curse binding the train. Clara's hand trembled on the handle, the metal vibrating under her fingers. The glow flared, and a shadow loomed behind the window, a woman tall and gaunt, her face obscured but her eyes burning with a hollow light. Clara yanked her hand back, but the door creaked, inching open on its own. A blast of frigid air hit her, carrying a scream, high, anguished female, that cut through her like a blade. The glow dimmed, and the shadow vanished, but the door stayed ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning. Clara's chest heaved, her mind scrambling for reason. A trick, a hallucination, anything but the truth staring her in the face. She slammed the door shut, her hands shaking, but the scream lingered, echoing in her skull. Something fell at her feet, a folded piece of paper, yellowed and brittle, as if it had been waiting for her. She knelt, her fingers hesitant, and picked it up. It was a newspaper clipping, dated November 4th, 1923, from the Blackthorn Gazette. The headline read, "Midnight Express Derailment Claims 30, Last Carriage at Tomb." A grainy photo showed the wreckage. The last carriage crumpled like a tin can, smoke rising from its ruins. Clara's breath caught as she scanned the article. Eleanor Vance, wife of conductor Samuel Vance, among the dead. Witnesses claim she cursed the train with her dying breath, blaming her husband's infidelity. The clipping trembled in her hands, its edges crumbling. She tucked it into her notebook, her mind reeling. Eleanor Vance wasn't just a story. She was real, and her presence was here in the last carriage, pulling Clara closer. The train jolted, and the lights flickered, casting the passage in darkness. The hum softened, but a new sound replaced it, a soft, deliberate footsteps coming from the other side of the door. Clara backed away, her boots slipping on the slick floor, until she was back in the third car, collapsing into her seat. The grandmother didn't look up, but her needles moved faster, the scarf now a grotesque length. The salesman was gone, his flask abandoned on the table. Clara's notebook fell open, and she wrote, her hand unsteady, "Eleanor Vance, 1923, cursed train." clipping appeared. Footsteps. Salesman missing. The Midnight Express was no longer a mystery to solve. It was a predator, and Clara was its prey. But she wasn't ready to surrender. Eleanor's story was the key, and Caldwell held the lock. She'd find him, force the truth from him, even if it meant facing the carriage again. The train's hum pulsed, and in its rhythm, she swore she heard a woman's voice. Soft and venomous. You're mine. Chapter 3. The Locked Door. Clara Henshaw's fingers traced the brittle edge of the 1923 newspaper clipping, its ink smudged but legible under the flickering lights of the Midnight Express. The words Eleanor Vance, cursed train, burned in her mind, each syllable a weight that anchored her fear to something real. The third car was a tomb of silence. The clack of wheels the only sound piercing the oppressive air. The grandmother's needles had stilled, her red scarf a coiled serpent in her lap, her eyes fixed on Clara with a knowing glint. The salesman's empty seat, his flask glinting dully on the table, was a fresh wound in Clara's thoughts. Another passenger gone, swallowed by the train's hunger, just like the young man before him. Her notebook lay open, the words footsteps. Salesman missing scrawled in a trembling hand. The last carriage wasn't just calling her, it was claiming others piece by piece. And Clara was running out of time to understand why. The air in the car was colder now, thick with that rotting fruit sweetness that clung to her tongue. The hum from the last carriage pulsed through the floor, a heartbeat that synced with her own. Clara's pocket felt empty without the black leather glove, its absence a taunt from the train. The clipping, though, was solid, tangible, a lifeline to the truth. Eleanor Vance, betrayed by her conductor husband, had cursed the Midnight Express with her dying breath in 1923. Clara's journalist instincts screamed to verify the story, to find records or witnesses, but the train was a world unto itself, cut off from reason. The only path forward was through E. Caldwell, the conductor whose bright eyes and cryptic threats hid a connection to the past. He'd warned her away from the last carriage, called it a grave. Now, she needed to know why. Clara stood, her legs unsteady, and tucked the clipping into her notebook. The grandmother's gaze followed her, but Clara ignored it, her focus on the corridor leading to the dining car. Caldwell would be there, or in the crew quarters beyond. She needed answers, not more folklore. The train swayed as she moved, the walls creaking like old bones. The corridor was a tunnel of shadows. The mildew and earth sensed stronger, mixed with a faint metallic tang, like blood. The door to the next car was heavy, its handle cold despite the warmth she'd felt at the last carriage. She pushed through, stepping into the dining car, where the clink of glassware and murmur of voices felt jarringly normal. A few passengers sat at tables, their faces pale under the chandelier's dim glow. Caldwell stood at the far end, his back to her, scribbling on a clipboard. Clara approached, her boots clicking on the polished floor. Caldwell, she said, her voice sharper than intended. He turned, his weathered face tightening, those two bright eyes locking onto hers. Miss Henshaw, he said, his tone clipped. You're persistent. Clara didn't flinch. Another passenger is gone. The salesman from the third car. His flask is there, but he's not. Like the kid with the earbuds. Caldwell's fingers twitched on the clipboard, but his expression remained stone. People wander, he said, echoing his earlier dismissal. Clara stepped closer, her voice low, not into thin air. You know what's happening. Eleanor Vance, 1923. The derailment. She cursed this train, didn't she? And you're tied to it. She pulled the clipping from her notebook, holding it up. This says she was the conductor's wife. Your family, maybe? Caldwell's eyes widened, just for a second, before narrowing to slits. He snatched the clipping, his fingers brushing hers, cold as ice. Where'd you get this? He hissed, his voice low enough to avoid the other passenger's ears. Clara held his gaze. It found me, by the last carriage. You going to tell me it's a coincidence? Caldwell crumpled the clipping in his fist, his jaw clenching. You're digging a hole, girl. That car's locked for a reason. You want to live, you'll stop asking questions. He turned to leave, but Clara grabbed his arm, her grip firm. I heard her, Caldwell. Eleanor. She's in there, and she's taking people. Why me? Why them? His arm tensed under her hand, and for a moment, she thought he'd strike her. Instead, he leaned close, his breath sour. You're marked because you came looking. The train chooses who it wants. Stay away, or you'll be next. He yanked free and stormed out, the door slamming behind him. Clara stood frozen, her heart pounding. The dining car's chatter resumed, but the passengers' eyes darted away as if they'd heard too much. She returned to the third car, her mind spinning. Marked because you came looking. Caldwell's words confirmed the grandmother's warning, but they raised more questions. Was Eleanor's curse random, or did it target the curious, the skeptical? Clara's notebook trembled as she wrote, Caldwell knows Eleanor. Family tie? Marked for investigating. Carriage chooses. The hum grew louder, vibrating through her seat, and the lights flickered, casting the car in a sickly yellow glow. She glanced at the corridor, expecting the door to be open again, but it was closed, locked tight. The last carriage was silent, but its silence was a predator's pause, not peace. Clara needed to see that door again, to test its pull, but fear rooted her to the seat. The clipping, now gone, had been a message, a breadcrumb from the train itself. She closed her eyes, replaying the scream she'd heard. Hi. Female, anguished. Eleanor's scream, trapped in the last carriage's walls. The train jolted, and Clara's eyes snapped open. The grandmother was gone, her knitting abandoned, the red scarf draped over the seat like a wound. Clara's stomach lurched. She stood, checking the car, but the old woman was nowhere. The salesman's flask, the young man's backpack, now the grandmother's scarf. Pieces of the missing, left behind like taunts. Clara grabbed the scarf. It was coarse and warm, and tucked it into her bag. Another one gone, she wrote, her hand shaking. Grandmother missing, scarf left. The train slowed, its wheels grinding as it entered a tunnel. The windows blackening. The hum softened, replaced by a new sound, a faint, rhythmic creaking like a door swaying on its hinges. Clara's head snapped toward the corridor. The door to the next car was closed, but the sound wasn't coming from there. It was deeper from the last carriage. She stood, her legs leaden, and moved toward the corridor, the creaking louder with each step. The air was frigid, her breath clouding, the metallic tang now overwhelming. At the heavy door to the last carriage, she stopped, her hand hovering over the handle. The creaking stopped, and the silence was worse, thick with anticipation. The window was dark, but a faint outline moved within, a woman's silhouette, her head tilted, as if listening. Clara's breath hitched, but she didn't touch the handle. The door was locked. She knew that, yet felt alive, its warmth pulsing under her palm. A whisper drifted through, soft and venomous. Clara, you see me. Eleanor's voice, unmistakable, laced with rage and sorrow. Clara backed away, her boots slipping, but something caught her eye, a scratch on the door, fresh and deep, like a claw mark. It hadn't been there before. She turned and fled to the third car, collapsing in her seat, her notebook falling open. She wrote, Eleanor's voice, silhouette, claw mark. Grandmother gone. The Midnight Express was tightening its grip, and Clara was its focus. She had to find Caldwell, to break the curse before the train claimed her. But the last carriage's whisper followed her, promising she was already too late. Clara Henshaw's breath came in shallow gasps as she slumped in her seat, the red scarf clutched in her trembling hands. The Midnight Express churned through the tunnel, its wheels grinding a dirge that echoed the claw mark etched in her mind. Fresh, deep. A wound on the last carriage's door. The third car was a crypt, its air stagnant with that metallic tang, now laced with a faint char like burnt wood. Her notebook lay open. The words Eleanor's voice, silhouette, claw mark. Grandmother gone scrawled in a frantic hand. The grandmother's absence was a fresh cut, joining the salesman and the young man in the train's growing tally. Clara's hazel eyes darted to the corridor, its door still closed, but the creaking from the last carriage lingered in her ears. A A siren call she fought to ignore. Eleanor Vance's whisper, "Clara, you see me," was a brand on her soul, its venom seeping deeper with every mile. The train wasn't just haunted, it was a predator, and Clara was its chosen prey. The lights flickered, casting jagged shadows across the velvet seats, and the hum from the last carriage pulsed stronger, a heartbeat that shook the floor. Clara's fingers tightened on the scarf, its wool warm, almost alive, like the glove before it. She shoved it into her bag, her mind racing. Caldwell was the key. His reaction to the 1923 clipping, snatching it, his eyes flashing with fear, proved he was tied to Eleanor Vance. Maybe by blood, maybe by guilt. His warning, the train chooses who it wants, wasn't just a threat, it was a confession. Clara needed to corner him, to force the truth about Eleanor's curse. But the thought of facing him again, with the carriage's hunger growing, made her stomach twist. She was marked, just as the grandmother had said. But why? Because she was a skeptic? Because she dared to dig? The train emerged from the tunnel, moonlight spilling through the windows, painting the car in a sickly silver glow. The landscape outside was a blur of twisted trees and fog, blackthorn valleys of scars stretching into the distance. Clara's notebook trembled as she added, "Tunnel, char smell, hum stronger." Caldwell hiding truth. She needed evidence, something beyond whispers and vanishings. The clipping had been a gift from the train, a taunt, but there had to be more. Records, artifacts, anything to unravel Eleanor's curse. The grandmother's story, 30 souls trapped in the 1923 derailment. Eleanor's vow of vengeance pointed to the last carriage as the curse's heart. Clara had to get inside, locked or not. But the claw mark and Eleanor's silhouette warned her it wouldn't be simple. A soft cough broke her thoughts. A new passenger, a man in a gray coat, sat 2 rows ahead, his back to her. Clara hadn't seen him board, hadn't heard him enter. The car was emptier now. Only a handful of passengers left, their faces pale and drawn, as if the train were draining them. She approached the man, her boots silent, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Excuse me," she said, "have you seen the conductor?" Or an older woman, knitting a red scarf. The man turned, his face gaunt, his eyes sunken like pits. "Ain't seen no one," he rasped, his voice raw, as if he'd been screaming. "But you're the one asking about that car, aren't you? The last one." Clara's skin prickled. "Who told you that?" The man's lips curled, not quite a smile. "Train talks, miss. You hear it too. It's why you're still here." He turned back to the window, his reflection showing a face that seemed to flicker like a bad signal. Clara backed away, her heart pounding. "Train talks." The man's words echoed the grandmother's and Caldwell's, a chorus of warnings she couldn't dismiss. She returned to her seat, jotting, "New passenger, knows about me. Train communicates." The hum grew louder, and the lights dimmed, plunging the car into near darkness. A soft thud came from the corridor, like something heavy falling. Clara's head snapped up, her eyes locking on the door. It was ajar again, swaying with the train's motion, and beyond it, the passage to the last carriage glowed faintly, a sickly green light that pulsed like a wound. The char smell was stronger, choking, and the air felt alive, pressing against her skin. Clara stood, her legs trembling, drawn to the corridor despite the fear clawing her chest. The thud came again, rhythmic like footsteps, but slower, deliberate. She grabbed her notebook, her only anchor, and stepped into the passage. The air was frigid, her breath clouding, the char and metal scent overwhelming. The door to the last carriage loomed, its window alive with that green glow, shadows writhing within, tall, thin, their edges bleeding into the light. The claw mark was deeper now, joined by others, a jagged pattern that seemed to pulse. Clara's hand hovered over the handle, the metal warm, almost throbbing. The whispers returned, a cacophony of voices, Eleanor's rising above them. "Clara, you know me, open." The words were a hook, pulling her closer, but the thudding stopped, replaced by a low, guttural laugh, female and venomous, that vibrated through the door. Clara's fingers brushed the handle, and the door shuddered, as if eager to open. A memory flashed. Not hers, but vivid. A woman, Eleanor, trapped in the last carriage, flames licking her skin. Her screams drowned by the crack of collapsing metal. Her eyes, burning with betrayal, locked onto a man, Samuel Vance, the conductor, watching from the tracks, unmoving. The vision snapped Clara back, her hand jerking away. The door stayed shut, but the green glow flared, and a new object lay at her feet. A rusted key, its teeth worn but sharp, etched with the initials EV. Clara's breath hitched as she picked it up, its weight heavy cold. It was for the last carriage, she knew it, but using it felt like signing her own death warrant. The train jolted, and the lights flared, the glow vanishing. The shadows were gone, but the claw marks remained, a map of Eleanor's rage. Clara stumbled back to the third car, the key burning in her palm. The man in the gray coat was gone, his seat empty, no trace of him. The other passengers didn't notice, their eyes glazed, as if the train were lulling them into oblivion. Clara collapsed in her seat, her notebook falling open. She wrote, her hand shaking. Eleanor's key, vision of 1923, Samuel's betrayal. Man in gray gone. Carriage offers key. The key was a trap, but also a chance. If she could open the last carriage, confront Eleanor, she might break the curse or lose herself to it. Caldwell was her next move, but the train was watching, and Eleanor's laugh echoed in her mind, promising no escape. Chapter 4. Echoes of the Lost. Clara Henshaw's fingers curled around the rusted key, its etched initials, EV, biting into her palm like an accusation. The Midnight Express roared through Blackthorn Valley, its wheels grinding a relentless dirge against the tracks, the air thick with the stench of char and metal, now laced with something sour. Like decay, the third car's lights flickered, casting the velvet seats in a sickly glow that made the shadows writhe. Her notebook lay open on her lap, the words Eleanor's key, vision of 1923, Samuel's betrayal. Man in gray gone scrawled in a hand she barely recognized. The key was heavy, unnatural, as if it carried the weight of the last carriage's curse. Clara's hazel eyes darted to the corridor, its door closed but radiating a presence, a hunger that pulsed in time with the train's hum. Eleanor Vance's laugh still echoed in her skull, venomous and intimate, promising no escape. Clara was a journalist, built to chase truth, but the train was rewriting her reality, and the key was its latest taunt. The car was emptier now, the remaining passengers silent, their faces pale as if drained by the journey. The grandmother's red scarf, the salesman's flask, the young man's backpack, all gone, like their owners, erased by the train's will. Clara's bag felt heavier, stuffed with the scarf she'd salvaged, a relic of the missing. The man in the gray coat's absence was the freshest wound. His cryptic words, train talks, a splinter in her mind. The train was communicating, choosing its victims, and Clara was at the center of its gaze. The vision of Eleanor's death, flames, betrayal. Samuel Vance's cold stare had been no hallucination. It was a message, a piece of the curse's origin, and the key was its physical echo. Clara turned it over, its teeth glinting in the dim light. It fit the last carriage's padlock, she was sure, but opening it felt like inviting Eleanor's wrath. She needed Caldwell, his fear, his snatching of the 1923 clipping, his family tie to Samuel Vance. It all pointed to answers. But confronting him meant risking his anger, or worse, the train's retaliation. Clara's notebook trembled as she wrote, key from Eleanor. For last carriage, must find Caldwell. The hum grew louder, shaking the floor, and the air tightened as if the train were listening. She stood, tucking the key into her pocket, its cold weight a constant reminder. The corridor loomed, but she couldn't face the last carriage again, not yet. Instead, she headed for the dining car, hoping to catch Caldwell off guard. The train swayed, its walls creaking like a living thing, and the decay scent grew stronger, clogging her throat. The dining car was quieter than before, its chandelier casting jagged shadows across the white tablecloths. A lone waiter polished glasses, his movements mechanical, his eyes avoiding Clara's. 2 passengers sat at a corner table, whispering, their words indistinct but urgent. Clara scanned for Caldwell, but he was gone. She approached the waiter, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "Where's the conductor? I need to speak to him." The waiter didn't look up, his cloth moving faster. "Crew quarters, maybe." "Don't bother him." Clara leaned closer, her tone firm. "People are disappearing. The last carriage, something's wrong. You know it." The waiter's hand froze, his eyes flicking to hers, wide with fear. "Keep your voice down," he hissed. "You think I don't know? I've seen things, shadows, hands in the windows. Stay away from that car, lady. It's not worth your life." He turned away, his shoulders hunched, as if expecting a blow. Clara's pulse raced, but she pressed on. "What about Eleanor Vance? The 1923 derailment." The waiter flinched, dropping his cloth. "Don't say her name," he whispered, his voice trembling. "She hears it. She's always listening." He grabbed his cloth and retreated to the kitchen, leaving Clara alone. Her notebook opened, her pen scratching. Waiter confirmed shadows, hands. Eleanor's name triggers fear. The train was a web, and every thread led to the last carriage. She needed to find the crew quarters, but the dining car's air grew colder, the hum louder, and the shadows seemed to stretch. Reaching for her, a soft thud broke her thoughts. It came from her bag, slung over her shoulder. Clara froze, her heart pounding. She set the bag on a table, her hands trembling as she unzipped it. The red scarf was still there, but beneath it was something new, a stack of old photographs, their edges curled, their surfaces stained with soot. Clara's breath caught. They hadn't been there before. She lifted the top photo, her fingers shaking. It showed the Midnight Express in 1923, its last carriage intact, a crowd of passengers boarding under a stormy sky. The next photo was of a woman, Eleanor Vance, unmistakable, her face pale, her eyes fierce, standing beside a man in a conductor's uniform. Samuel Vance. The third photo was the derailment's aftermath. The last carriage a twisted wreck, smoke rising, and a figure, Eleanor, standing in the foreground, her silhouette blurred but her gaze piercing. Clara's stomach lurched. The photos were a gift. Like the clipping, the key, a trail left by the train. She tucked them into her notebook, writing, photos from 1923, Eleanor, Samuel, derailment. Train planting clues. The hum softened, but a new sound emerged, a faint, rhythmic tapping like fingers on glass, coming from the corridor. Clara's head snapped up. The door to the next car was closed, but beyond it, the passage to the last carriage glowed faintly, that sickly green light pulsing again. The tapping grew louder, insistent, and Clara's hand drifted to the key in her pocket. The train was calling, daring her to use it. She stood, her legs leaden, and moved toward the corridor, the decay scent overwhelming, now mixed with a faint floral note, like wilted roses. The passage was a tunnel of cold, the air thick with unseen eyes. The last carriage's door loomed, its claw marks deeper, joined by new scratches that formed a pattern. Letters, maybe, but too jagged to read. The green glow pulsed, and the tapping became a knock, slow and deliberate. Clara's hand closed around the key, its teeth biting her skin. The whispers returned, Eleanor's voice clear above the rest. "Clara, use it. See me." The words were a command, a plea, a threat. Clara's vision blurred. Another memory, not hers, flooding in. Eleanor, trapped in the burning carriage. Her hands clawing at the locked door. Samuel's face outside, cold, unmoving. Her scream, "You'll pay, all of you," shook Clara, snapping her back. The key trembled in her hand, inches from the padlock. But fear stopped her. The knock became a bang, and the door rattled, as if something massive pressed against it. Clara stumbled back, the glow flaring, shadows lunging from the window, hands, faces. Eleanor's among them, her mouth open in a silent scream. The train lurched, and the lights died, plunging the passage into darkness. The banging stopped, replaced by a low, guttural moan. The same she'd heard before, now closer, inside the passage. Clara ran, her boots slipping, until she was back in the dining car, collapsing against the table. The waiter was gone, the passengers too, the car empty. Her notebook fell open, and she wrote, her hand shaking. Eleanor's photos, key tempts me. Banging, moaning passage. Carriage wants me to open it. The Midnight Express was tightening its noose, and Clara was its target. She had to find Caldwell, to force the truth about Eleanor's curse, but the key in her pocket pulsed, promising answers and doom. Clara Henshaw's heart hammered as she leaned against the dining car's table, the rusted key in her pocket a cold ember against her thigh. The Midnight Express barreled through Blackthorn Valley, its wheels screeching like a banshee, the air thick with decay and wilted roses, now undercut by a faint, acrid smoke that stung her eyes. The dining car was a hollow shell, its tables bare, the chandelier's light dimming to a sickly flicker. Her notebook lay open, the words Eleanor's photos, key tempts me, banging, moan and passage scrawled in a frantic hand. The photos, Eleanor's fierce gaze, Samuel's betrayal, the derailment's wreckage, were tucked inside, each a shard of the curse's truth. The last carriage's banging still echoed in her skull, that guttural moan too close, too alive. Clara's hazel eyes flicked to the corridor, its door closed but radiating a malice that curled her stomach. Eleanor Vance's whisper, "Use it, see me," was a siren's call, and the key was her lure. Clara was a journalist, wired for facts, but the train was a labyrinth of dread, and every step drew her closer to its heart. The car's emptiness was a fresh wound. The waiter, the whispering passengers, all gone, erased like the grandmother, the salesman, the young man. Clara's bag sagged with a red scarf, the only proof the grandmother had existed. The train was thinning its herd, and Clara was its focus. The key's weight was a constant pull, urging her to the last carriage to unlock Eleanor's prison. But the banging, the shadows, the moan, they warned her it wasn't just a door she'd open, but a grave. Caldwell was her only hope, his tie to Samuel Vance the thread to unravel Eleanor's curse. She had to find him, to force answers before the train claimed her. The hum from a last carriage grew louder, vibrating through the floor, and the smoke scent thickened, as if the 1923 fire were bleeding into the present. Clara stood, her legs unsteady, and slung her bag over her shoulder. The corridor to the crew quarters was her next move, but the dining car's air tightened, the shadows stretching like fingers. A soft creak broke the silence. Not from the corridor, but from her bag. Clara froze, her pulse spiking. She set the bag down, her hands trembling as she unzipped it. The scarf was there, but beneath it was a new object, a small, leather-bound journal, its cover scorched, its pages warped. Clara's breath caught. It hadn't been there minutes ago. She lifted it, the leather warm, almost pulsing, and opened it. The first page bore a name in faded ink. Eleanor Vance, 1923. The journal was hers, a relic of the woman whose curse bound the train. Clara's fingers shook as she turned the pages, finding entries in a sharp, elegant hand. Samuel lies. He loves another. The train is my cage. Another, Blackthorn Valley, mile 47. I'll make them pay. Clara's stomach lurched as she read the final entry, dated November 3rd, 1923. The fire burns, but I won't die alone. This train will carry my wrath forever. Those who board the last carriage will join me until Samuel's blood pays. The words were a vow, etched in rage, and Clara's mind flashed to the vision. Eleanor's screams, Samuel's cold stare. The journal was a map to the curse's mechanics. Eleanor's vengeance targeted passengers, trapping them in the last carriage, but it hinged on Samuel's bloodline. Caldwell, with his bright eyes and fear, was likely a descendant, the key to breaking or feeding the curse. Clara tucked the journal into her notebook, writing, Eleanor's journal. Curse needs Samuel's blood. Caldwell is target. The train was planting clues, but each one felt like a trap, drawing her to the last carriage. The hum softened, replaced by a faint, rhythmic scratching like nails on wood. Coming from the corridor, Clara's head snapped up. The door to the next car was ajar, swaying, and beyond it, the passage to the last carriage glowed with that sickly green light. Pulsing like a festering wound, the scratching grew louder, deliberate, and Clara's hand drifted to the key. The train was daring her to act, to use it, but Eleanor's journal warned a price. Her hands pressed against the glass, nails scraping. Clara's hand closed around the key, its teeth biting her skin. The whispers surged, a chorus of trapped souls, Eleanor's voice rising. "Clara, free us, use it." The words were a hook, but the journal's warning held her back. Opening the door meant joining Eleanor's victims. A new vision hit, unbidden. Eleanor in the burning carriage. Not human, not animal, but something ancient. Clara's hand froze, the key trembling, but fear won. She backed away, the glow reappearing, weaker, as if disappointed. Something slid under the door. A single photograph, scorched and curled, showing Eleanor's face, her eyes hollow, her mouth open in a scream. Clara grabbed it, her hands shaking, and ran back to the dining car, collapsing against the table. The car was still empty, the chandelier dark, the air thick with smoke. Her notebook fell open, and she wrote, Eleanor's journal. Curse targets passengers, needs Caldwell's blood. Photo sob growl. Door begs to be opened. The key was a blade, sharp with promise and peril. She had to find Caldwell, to confront him with the journal, but the last carriage's sob lingered, pleading, and Clara wasn't sure she could resist its call much longer. Chapter 5. The Phantom Passenger. Clara Henshaw's fingers trembled as she clutched the scorched photograph of Eleanor Vance, her hollow eyes searing into Clara's own. The Midnight Express tore through the fog-choked expanse of Blackthorn Valley, its wheels grinding a relentless dirge that matched the pounding in her chest. The dining car was a mausoleum, its tables bare, the chandelier's light extinguished, leaving only the faint glow of emergency lamps to cast jagged shadows. The air was thick with smoke and wilted roses, now laced with a damp, earthy rot that clung to her skin. Her notebook lay open, the words Eleanor's journal, curse targets passengers, needs Caldwell's blood. Photo sob, growl scrawled in a hand that felt foreign. The rusted key in her pocket burned, its initials, Evie, a brand she couldn't escape. Eleanor's sob, that broken, pleading sound from the last carriage, echoed in her skull, intertwined with the guttural growl that wasn't human. Clara was a journalist, built to unravel mysteries, but the train was a living curse, and every clue, journal, photo, key, tightened its grip on her soul. The car's emptiness was a void, the absence of passengers a silent scream. The waiter, the whispering couple, all gone, joining the grandmother, salesman, and young man in the train's tally. Clara's bag sagged with a red scarf, the only relic of the lost, now joined by Eleanor's journal and photos. The curse's mechanics were clear. Eleanor's vengeance trapped souls in the last carriage, feeding on passengers until Samuel Vance's blood, likely Caldwell's, paid the price. But why her? Why was Clara marked? Her name woven into Eleanor's whispers? The key was a temptation, urging her to unlock the last carriage, but the sob and growl warned of a fate worse than death. She needed Caldwell to force the truth about his ancestors' betrayal, but the train was watching, its hum a heartbeat that pulsed through the floor, syncing with her own. Clara stood, her legs leaden, and slung her bag over her shoulder. The crew quarters were her next move, but the dining car's air grew colder, the shadows coiling like smoke. A faint rustle broke the silence. Not from the corridor, but from the far end of the car, where a woman sat, her back to Clara. She hadn't been there moments ago. Clara's pulse spiked, but she approached, her boots soft on the polished floor. The woman was pale, her hair pinned in a 1950s style, her dress a faded blue that shimmered unnaturally. "Excuse me," Clara said, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "Have you seen the conductor?" The woman turned, her face young but hollow, her eyes a milky gray that seemed to see through Clara. "Conductor's no help," she said, her voice soft, tinged with an old-fashioned drawl. "Not for us." Clara's skin prickled. "Us?" The woman's lips curved, not quite a smile. "The ones who boarded the last car. I was like you, curious. 1953, I think. Name's Ruth Carter." Clara's breath caught. 1953, decades ago, yet Ruth looked barely 30. She sat across from her, her notebook trembling. "You're alive?" Ruth's laugh was brittle, like breaking glass. "Alive ain't the word. Stuck maybe. That car don't let go. I went looking for answers like you. Found Eleanor instead." Clara's hand drifted to the key, its weight heavier. "Eleanor Vance? She's in there." Ruth's eyes darkened. "She's the heart of it. Her rage keeps us bound. You got her key, don't you? I can feel it." Clara froze, her hand jerking away. "How do you—" Ruth cut her off, leaning closer, her breath cold. "Train talks, darling. You're marked, same as me. Use that key, and you'll see her, but you won't walk away." Clara's mind raced, her pen scratching. Ruth Carter, 1953, trapped by Eleanor. "Knows about key. Why me?" she asked, her voice shaking. Ruth's gaze softened, almost pitying. "You're a seeker like I was. Eleanor loves the curious. She'll call you, show you things till you open that door." Ruth reached out, her fingers grazing Clara's wrist, icy and insubstantial. A locket slipped from her hand, landing on the table with a soft clink. It was silver, tarnished, engraved with RC. Clara opened it, finding a faded photo of the Midnight Express's first crew, Samuel Vance at the center, his eyes cold. "Keep it," Ruth said, her voice fading. "It's all I got left." Clara looked up, but Ruth was gone, the seat empty, the air colder. The locket remained, its weight real, another gift from the train. Clara's notebook shook as she wrote, "Ruth's locket, Samuel's photo. Eleanor targets seekers." The hum grew louder, and the lights flickered, plunging the car into near darkness. A soft tapping came from the corridor, like nails on glass, and Clara's head snapped up. The door was ajar, the passage to the last carriage glowing with that sickly green light, pulsing like a wound. The tapping became a knock, slow and deliberate, and Clara's hand closed around the key. The train was calling, Eleanor's voice weaving through the hum. "Clara, bring it, free us." The words were a hook, but Ruth's warning held her back. Opening the door meant joining the trapped souls. Clara stood, her bag heavy with relics, scarf, journal, photos, locket, and moved toward the corridor, the rotten smoke scent choking her. The passage was a freezer, her breath clouding. The knocking louder, joined by a faint sob, the same broken sound from before. The last carriage's door loomed, its claw marks now forming words. "Open now." The green glow flared, and shadows writhed within, Ruth's face among them, her milky eyes pleading. Clara's hand trembled, the key inches from the padlock, but a new vision hit. Ruth, in 1953, unlocking the door. Stepping into a void of flames and screams, Eleanor's silhouette waiting. The vision snapped Clara back, her hand jerking away. The knocking became a bang, the door rattling, and the sob turned to a scream, high and anguished. Clara stumbled back, the glow dimming, but something slid under the door. A single, yellowed ticket stub, dated November 3rd, 1923, marked last carriage, E. Vance. Clara grabbed it, her hands shaking, and ran back to the dining car, collapsing against the table. The car was empty, the locket still on the table, its photo of Samuel staring up. Clara's notebook fell open, and she wrote, "Ruth trapped, locket, ticket stub for 1923. Eleanor's call stronger. Must find Caldwell." The key was a noose, tightening with every clue. Caldwell was the curse's endgame, his blood the price, but Eleanor's scream lingered, promising Clara would join her first. She had to confront him to break the cycle. But the last carriage's hunger was growing, and Clara wasn't sure she could resist its pull. Clara Henshaw's fingers shook as she clutched the yellowed ticket stub. Its faded ink, last carriage E. Vance, November 3rd, 1923, a cold accusation in her hand. The Midnight Express churned through the fog of Blackthorn Valley, its wheels grinding a mournful cadence that pulsed with the hum from the last carriage. The dining car was a frozen void, its tables bare, the emergency lamps casting a sickly glow that made the shadows twitch like living things. The air was heavy with rot and smoke, now laced with a faint, cloying sweetness, like flowers left too long in a vase. Her notebook lay open, the words Ruth trapped, locket, ticket stub for 1923. Eleanor's call stronger scrawled in a frantic scrawl. The rusted key in her pocket burned, its weight a constant pull toward the last carriage, where Eleanor Vance's scream still echoed, a siren's wail that hooked Clara's soul. She was a journalist, built to chase truth, but the train was a predator, and every relic, scarf, journal, photos, locket, ticket, wove her deeper into its curse. The car's emptiness was a silent wound, the absence of Ruth Carter's ghostly presence a fresh scar. Clara's bag sagged with the weight of the lost. The red scarf, Eleanor's journal, the scorched photos, the locket with Samuel Vance's cold face. Ruth's warning, use that key and you won't walk away, clashed with Eleanor's whispers, urging Clara to open the door. The curse's rules were clear. Eleanor's rage trapped souls in the last carriage, feeding on the curious until Samuel's blood, likely Caldwell's, paid the price. But Clara's role was murkier. Why her? Ruth had called her a seeker. Like herself, marked for daring to question. The ticket stub, like the key, was a gift from the train, a piece of Eleanor's story, but each clue felt like a step toward trap. Clara's hand drifted to the key, its teeth biting her skin, and Eleanor's voice whispered again, "Clara, you're mine." The hum grew louder, shaking the floor, and the lights flickered, plunging the car into near darkness. A soft rustle came from the corridor, not footsteps, but something softer, like fabric dragging across wood. Clara's head snapped up, her heart pounding. The door was ajar, the passage to the last carriage glowing with that sickly green light, pulsing like a heartbeat. The rustle became a shuffle, and a faint shadow moved in the passage, tall and thin, its edges blurring like smoke. Clara stood, her bag heavy, the ticket stub trembling in her hand. She needed Caldwell to force the truth about Samuel's betrayal, but the last carriage was calling, and Clara's breath clouded as she stepped toward the corridor. The passage was a tunnel of frost, the walls slick with condensation that smelled of earth and ash. The shuffle stopped. Commanding, "Clara, bring it, free me." The shadow reappeared, closer, its form clearer, a woman, gaunt, her dress charred, her face hidden but her eyes burning with a hollow light. Clara's knees buckled, but she held her ground, the ticket stub crumpling in her fist. "Eleanor," she whispered, her voice shaking. "What do you want?" The shadow lunged, its icy fingers grazing Clara's arm, and a vision hit, sharper than before. Eleanor in the burning carriage, her hands clawing the locked door, Samuel outside, his face twisted with guilt and triumph. But this time, Clara saw more. Eleanor's curse, a vow sealed in blood, binding the train to an eternal route, its last carriage a prison for the curious, the skeptical, those who dare to see. Clara's face flashed in the vision, her own eyes wide, standing in the carriage, trapped with Ruth, the grandmother, the salesman. The vision snapped, and Clara gasped, the shadow gone, the door rattling as if struck. The green glow dimmed, but a new object lay at her feet, a small, silver hairpin, its tip stained with something dark, like dried blood. Clara grabbed it, her hand shaking, and stumbled back to the dining car, collapsing against the table. The car was still empty, the locket on the table glinting, Samuel's photo staring up. Clara's notebook fell open, and she wrote, Eleanor's shadow, vision of curse, hairpin with blood. Targets seekers like me. The hairpin was another piece tied to Eleanor's death, maybe her final moments. The vision had shown Clara's fate, trapped in a last carriage, another soul for Eleanor's wrath. But it also showed the curse's weakness, Samuel's blood. Caldwell was the key, not just to answers, but to ending this. The hum softened, but a new sound emerged, a faint, rhythmic creaking like a door swaying, coming from the crew quarters. Clara stood, her bag heavy with relics, and moved toward the sound, the sweetness and ash scent choking her. The train was guiding her, but to salvation or doom, she couldn't tell. The crew quarters door was heavy, its handle rusted, but it opened with a groan, revealing a narrow hall lined with lockers and a single bunk. Caldwell sat on the bunk, his head in his hands. The 1923 clipping crumpled beside him. He looked up, his bright eyes wild, his face pale. You don't quit, do you? He rasped, his voice raw. Clara held up the ticket stub, her voice steady despite her fear. Eleanor's ticket, Caldwell. Your ancestor locked her in that carriage, didn't he? Her curse needs your blood to end. Caldwell's jaw clenched, his hands trembling. You think I don't know? He snapped. My family's carried this for a century. I keep the door locked, keep people away, but it ain't enough. She takes who she wants, and you're next. He stood, his shadow looming, and Clara's hand drifted to the key, Eleanor's whisper urging her to act. The train jolted, and the lights died, plunging the room into darkness. The creaking grew louder, and a cold laugh, Eleanor's, filled the air coming from the corridor. Clara's notebook slipped, and she wrote, her hand shaking. Caldwell confirms Samuel's guilt. Curse needs his blood. Eleanor's laugh, coming for us. The key was a blade, sharp with promise, but the last carriage's creaking was a warning. Clara had to choose, force Caldwell to face Eleanor, or use the key herself, risking her soul. The laugh grew closer, and Clara wasn't sure she had time to decide. Chapter 6, The Conductor's Secret. Clara Henshaw's breath fogged in the crew quarters' frigid air, the rusted key in her pocket a searing weight against her thigh. The midnight express roared through Blackthorn Valley, its wheels grinding a relentless cadence that synced with the hum from the last carriage, a heartbeat that shook the rusted lockers around her. The dim glow of a single bulb flickered, casting Caldwell's weathered face in sharp relief, his bright eyes wild with a mix of fear and resignation. Eleanor Vance's cold laugh still lingered, a venomous echo from the corridor, where the door to the dining car stood ajar, leaking that sickly green glow. Clara's notebook lay at her feet, its pages splayed. The words Caldwell confirms Samuel's guilt. Curse needs his blood. Eleanor's laugh, coming for us scrawled in a trembling hand. The air was thick with ash and rotting flowers, now laced with a sharp, coppery tang, like blood spilled long ago. The ticket stub, Eleanor's journal, the locket, the hairpin. Each relic in Clara's bag was a piece of the curse, but Caldwell was the key. His family's is in the root of the train's hunger. Clara's hazel eyes locked onto Caldwell, her voice steady despite the dread clawing her chest. You knew, she said, holding up the 1923 ticket stub. Its ink faded but damning. Samuel Vance, your ancestor, betrayed Eleanor, locked her in that carriage to die. Her curse is your family's debt, isn't it? Caldwell's jaw tightened, his hands clenching into fists, the crumpled clipping from the Blackthorn Gazette glinting beside him. For a moment, she thought he'd lunge, but he sank onto the bunk, his shoulders slumping. You don't know what you're stirring, Henshaw, he rasped, his voice raw, like he'd been screaming for years. My great-grandfather, Samuel, was a coward. Eleanor was his wife. But he loved another, a passenger. He planned the derailment, sabotaged the tracks to kill her, to be free. But she didn't just die. She cursed him, cursed this train, and every Vance since it's paid. Clara's pulse raced, her pen scratching. Samuel's sabotage derailment killed Eleanor. Curse binds Vance family. And you? She pressed, stepping closer, the key burning in her pocket. You're keeping her locked in that carriage, feeding her passengers to save yourself. Caldwell's eyes flashed, his voice a hiss. You think I want this? I was born to this train, same as my father. His father. We keep the last car locked, warn folks away, but Eleanor chooses who she takes. The curious, the skeptics, like you. I've seen her, Henshaw, in the windows, the shadows. She's not just a ghost. She's the train. The bulb flickered, and the hum grew louder, vibrating through the floor, as if the train were nodding in agreement. Clara's stomach twisted. Ruth Carter's warning. Eleanor's the heart of it, echoing Caldwell's words. The curse wasn't just Eleanor's rage. It was the Midnight Express itself, a living prison for the souls she claimed. Then why not end it? Clara asked, her voice shaking. Your blood, Caldwell. The journal said it's the price. Caldwell laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You think it's that easy? My grandfather tried, in 47. Slashed his wrists in the last carriage. Didn't work. Eleanor took him, kept him, and the train rolled on. My father, in 82, same thing. I'm the last Vance, and I'm not fool enough to try. He stood, his shadow looming, and Clara's hand drifted to the key, Eleanor's whisper slithering through her mind. Clara, bring him. The train jolted, and the bulb died, plunging the room into darkness. Eleanor's laugh returned, closer, seeping from the walls, the floor, the air itself. The coppery tang grew stronger, and a soft scraping sounded from the corridor, like nails dragging across wood. Clara fumbled for her phone, its flashlight cutting through the gloom, revealing Caldwell's pale face, his eyes wide with terror. She's here, he whispered, backing against the bunk. The scraping became a knock, slow and deliberate, coming from the dining car's door. Clara's heart pounded, the key pulsing in her pocket, its warmth urging her to act. She grabbed her notebook, stuffing it into her bag with the relics: scarf, journal, locket, photos, ticket, hairpin. We need to move, she said, her voice firm despite the fear. She wants you, but I'm not letting her take me. Caldwell shook his head, his voice trembling. You can't outrun her. The last carriage, it's her domain. You got her key, don't you? She'll make you use it. Clara's hand froze on the key, Ruth's milky eyes flashing in her mind. The knocking grew louder, joined by a faint sob. The same broken sound from the last carriage, now mingled with a low, guttural growl. The air grew colder, her breath clouding, and the green glow spilled from the corridor, painting the crew quarters in a sickly hue. Clara grabbed Caldwell's arm, yanking him toward the door. You're coming with me. We face her together, or we're both done. He resisted, but another jolt of the train sent him stumbling after her, the laugh swelling, Eleanor's voice clear. Clara, he's mine. The dining car was a frozen wasteland, its tables overturned. The chandelier shattered on the floor. The green glow pulsed from the passage to the last carriage, where the knocking became a pounding, the door rattling on its hinges. Clara's flashlight caught something new, a trail of ash, leading from the corridor to the crew quarters, as if Eleanor had walked through. The ash was warm, stinging Clara's fingers as she touched it, and her mind flashed to the 1923 fire, Eleanor's burning flesh sealing the curse. She wrote, her hand shaking, Eleanor's ash trail, Laughin' Walls, once Caldwell. Key burns. The pounding stopped, but the sob grew louder, joined by a chorus of whispers. Ruth, the grandmother, the salesman, all trapped, pleading, help us, free us. Clara dragged Caldwell into the passage, the air a freezer, the ash trail glowing faintly under the green light. The last carriage's door loomed, its claw marks now a jagged script. Bring him. The key in her pocket throbbed, and Clara's hand trembled as she pulled out, its teeth glinting. Caldwell gasped, backing away, but Clara grabbed his collar, her voice fierce. You're the price, Caldwell. Tell me how to stop her, or I open this door and we both go in. His eyes darted to the key, his face ashen. There's a ritual, he stammered. In the journal, maybe blood, relics, a vow to unbind her. But it's never worked. She's too strong. The door rattled, and Eleanor's laugh became a scream, high and anguished, shaking the passage. A new vision hit Clara. Eleanor, forging the curse. Her blood soaking the carriage floor, her soul fusing with the train's iron. Clara's face appeared, holding the key, stepping inside, her eyes hollow. The vision snapped, and Clara dropped the key. Gasping, the door cracked open just an inch, and a blast of frigid air hit her, carrying the sob, the growl, the whispers. Caldwell screamed, collapsing, and Clara grabbed the key, her hands shaking. But Eleanor's scream promised she'd never let go. The cracked door to the last carriage exhaled a frigid gust, carrying Eleanor Vance's scream, a piercing wail that clawed at Clara Henshaw's mind. The Midnight Express shuddered through Blackthorn Valley, its wheels grinding a dirge that synced with the hum, now a thunderous pulse shaking the passage's slick walls. The green glow from the door's narrow gap pulsed like a festering wound, casting jagged shadows that writhed with faces. Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, all trapped, their eyes pleading. Clara's hand trembled around the rusted key, its teeth biting her palm, the initials EV of burning accusation. Her notebook hung open in her bag, the words ritual in journal, Eleanor's soul in train. Door opening scrawled in a frantic hand. The air was a chokehold of ash, rotting flowers, and blood, the coppery tang, so thick Clara tasted it. Caldwell cowered behind her, his screams reduced to whimpers, his weathered face ashen under the flickering light. The train was a living curse, Eleanor its heart, and Clara was teetering on the edge of its maw. Caldwell's words, a ritual, blood, relics of vow, were a lifeline, but the journal's pages were vague, Eleanor's rage a cipher. Clara's bag sagged with the relics, the red scarf, the scorched journal, the locket with Samuel Vance's cold face, the photos, the ticket stub, the blood-stained hairpin. Each was a piece of the curse, a map to its undoing, but the door's crack was a siren's call. Eleanor's scream weaving with whispers. Clara, bring him, end it. The key burned, urging her to act, but Ruth's warning, you won't walk away, held her back. Caldwell was the price, his blood the key to unbinding Eleanor. But the vision of herself, trapped in the carriage, eyes hollow, warned Clara she might join the lost. The train jolted, and the door creaked wider. The glow flaring, shadows lunging, Eleanor's silhouette, gaunt and charred, her hands clawing the air. Clara stumbled back, dragging Caldwell with her, his weight heavy against her grip. The ritual, she snapped, her voice cutting through the scream. What's in the journal? Tell me now. Caldwell's eyes darted to the door, his voice a broken rasp. It's old, half-mad. Eleanor wrote it. Blood of the betrayer, relics of a lost, a vow to release her. You need her things, her pain, and me. But she twists it, Henshaw. My grandfather tried, my father too. They're in there with her. The scream softened, replaced by a sob, broken and female, joined by a guttural growl that vibrated the walls. Clara's mind raced, the journal's final entry flashing. This train will carry my wrath until Samuel's blood pays. The relics were Eleanor's pain, the scarf and locket her victim's echoes, but Caldwell's blood was the key. And the vow, Clara's role, was unclear. She yanked the journal from her bag, its scorched leather warm, and flipped to the last pages, her flashlight trembling. Eleanor's script was jagged, frantic. Gather what I've touched, my blood, my sorrow, my betrayal. Offer the betrayer's kin. Speak my name, undo my chains. A crude drawing followed, a circle of relics, a figure bleeding, flames fading. Clara's pulse spiked. The ritual was real, but the cost was steep. The door rattled, the crack widening, and a blast of air hit her, carrying ash and the stench of burnt flesh. The shadows surged. Ruth's face clear, her milky eyes wide. Don't she lies? Clara's hand shook, the key pulsing, and she shoved the journal at Caldwell. This is it. she said, her voice fierce. "We do it now, or we're both gone." Caldwell recoiled, his eyes wild. "You don't get it. She'll take us both. The ritual's a trap. She wants more souls." The growl grew louder, and the door slammed shut. The glow dimming, but the hum roaring, shaking the passage. Clara's flashlight caught the ash trail, now a circle around them, glowing faintly, as if Eleanor had marked their stage. She grabbed the relics, scarf, locket, photos, ticket, hairpin, and arranged them in a circle, mimicking the journal's drawing. "We don't have a choice," she said, her voice shaking. "You're the last, Vance. It ends with you." Caldwell's face crumpled, but he nodded, his hands trembling as he pulled a pocket knife from his belt. "Blood, then," he whispered. "But you say the words." "I can't." Clara's stomach twisted, the key burning as she pulled it out, its warmth alive. The circle of relics glowed faintly, the air thickening, the sob returning, now a chorus of trapped souls. She opened the journal, her voice steady despite the fear. "Eleanor Vance, I offer your pain, your blood, your sorrow, your betrayal." She placed the hairpin, stained with Eleanor's blood, at the circle's center. "I offer the betrayer's kin." Caldwell sliced his palm, blood dripping onto the scarf, the locket, the ticket. The hum surged, and the glow returned, spilling from the door seams. Clara's voice wavered. "I vow to release you, to unbind your chains." The words felt wrong, heavy, as if they bound her instead. The circle flared, the relics burning without flame, and Eleanor's laugh erupted, triumphant, shaking the passage. A vision hit Clara. Eleanor, forging the curse, her blood soaking the carriage, her soul fusing with the train. But now Clara saw the ritual's truth. Eleanor didn't want freedom. She wanted company, more souls to feed her wrath, and the vow marked Clara as one. The vision showed Clara stepping into the carriage, the door locking, her screams joining Ruth's. Clara gasped, snapping back. The circle of relics now ash, Caldwell's blood steaming. He collapsed, clutching his hand, his eyes wide. "She's coming," he whispered. The door cracked open again, wider, and a hand, charred, skeletal, reached out, its nails scraping the floor. Eleanor's silhouette loomed, her eyes hollow, her mouth open in a silent scream. The growl became a roar, and the trapped soul's whispers surged. "Run, run." Clara grabbed Caldwell, yanking him back, the key falling to the floor, its glow matching the doors. The hand retreated, but the door stayed open, the green light blinding, Eleanor's laugh a blade in Clara's mind. She scooped up her notebook, writing, "Ritual failed. Eleanor wants souls, not freedom." Key dropped. "She's here." The passage shook, the walls creaking like breaking bones, and the air was fire and ice. Ash and blood. Clara dragged Caldwell toward the dining car, but the ash trail followed, circling them, Eleanor's presence a weight on her chest. The ritual had awakened her, not unbound her. And Clara was marked deeper now, her vow a chain. She had to find another way, to use Caldwell's blood without feeding Eleanor. But the last carriage's door was open, and Eleanor's hand was reaching, promising no escape. Chapter 7. Shadows on the Tracks. Clara Henshaw's boots skidded on the slick floor as she dragged E. Caldwell into the dining car, Eleanor Vance's laugh a jagged blade in her ears. The Midnight Express roared through Blackthorn Valley, its wheels screeching like a wounded beast, the hum from the last carriage a thunderous pulse that rattled the overturned tables around her. The air was a chokehold of ash, blood, and rotting flowers, the sickly green glow from the open passage seeping through the corridor's door, painting the car in a feverish light. Clara's bag sagged with relics, scarf, journal, locket, photos, ticket, hairpin, all scorched from the failed ritual, their embers still warm. Her notebook, clutched in her trembling hand, bore the frantic scrawl, "Ritual failed. Eleanor wants souls, not freedom." Key dropped. "She's here." The rusted key, left behind in the passage, was a lost lifeline, but Eleanor's charred hand. Reaching from the last carriage was a chain tightening around Clara's soul. Caldwell's bloodied palm dripped onto the floor, his face ashen, his bright eyes dull with terror. The train was a living curse, and Clara was its marked prey. The dining car was a wreckage, its chandelier shards glinting like teeth, the walls slick with condensation that reeked of earth and fire. The ritual's failure had unleashed Eleanor, her presence no longer confined to the last carriage. The ash trail followed them, a glowing circle that pulsed with the train's hum. As if Eleanor had claimed the entire car, Clara's hazel eyes darted to the corridor, where the green glow flared, shadows writhing. Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, their faces twisted in silent screams. Eleanor's laugh softened, replaced by a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the floor, synced with the sob of trapped souls. Clara's mind raced. The journal's words, blood of the betrayer, relics of the lost, a vow, a mocking echo. The ritual was a trap, designed to feed Eleanor's wrath, and Clara's vow had bound her deeper. Her name now part of the train's chorus. Caldwell collapsed against the table, his blood smearing the wood, his voice a broken rasp. "You woke her," he whispered, his eyes fixed on the corridor. "She's stronger now. She'll take us both." Clara's stomach twisted, but she grabbed his collar, her voice fierce. "We're not done. You said your grandfather, your father, they tried the ritual. What went wrong? Tell me." Caldwell's head shook, his hands trembling. "They gave their blood, like me, used her relics, spoke her name. But Eleanor, she twisted. Wants more than blood. Wants souls. Forever." The growl grew louder, and the train jolted, the dining car tilting as if the tracks themselves were bending. Clara's notebook trembled as she wrote, "Eleanor twists ritual, wants souls. Caldwell's blood, not enough." The train slowed, its rhythm faltering, and the windows revealed a fog-choked valley, the trees skeletal, their branches clawing the sky. Clara's breath caught as she saw them. Figures on the tracks, dozens standing motionless, their silhouettes blurred but their eyes glinting, hollow and white. Ruth, the grandmother, the salesman, even a man in the gray coat, all there, watching. Eleanor's silhouette loomed largest, her charred form towering, her head tilted as if listening. Clara's hand tightened on her bag, the relics heavy, their warmth a reminder of the curse's hold. "They're not gone," she whispered, her voice shaking. "She's keeping them out there." Caldwell's eyes widened, his voice a hiss. "Her army, the one she took. They're bound to the train, same as her." The fog thickened, swallowing the figures, but their eyes lingered, burning through the glass. The train's hum softened, and a new sound emerged, a faint, rhythmic scraping, like nails on iron, coming from the roof. Clara's head snapped up, her heart pounding. The dining car's ceiling creaked, as if something heavy were moving above. "She's not just in the carriage," Caldwell said, his voice barely audible. "She's everywhere now." The scraping became a thud, and the emergency lamps flickered, plunging the car into near darkness. Clara fumbled for her flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom, revealing the ash trail, now a spiral, leading back to the corridor. The green glow pulsed, and Eleanor's sob returned, softer, almost mocking, laced with a whisper. "Clara, see them, join them." Clara's legs trembled, but she pulled Caldwell to his feet, her voice steady despite the fear. "We need another way. The journal, the relics, there's something we missed." She yanked the journal from her bag, its scorched pages crumbling, and flipped to the ritual's drawing. A circle, blood, relics, flames fading. A faint note, overlooked before, caught her eye. The betrayer's heart, not just blood. Clara's pulse spiked. "Heart," she said, shoving the journal at Caldwell. "It's not just your blood. Samuel's betrayal. Eleanor wants his heart, his guilt. You have to face her, confess his sin." Caldwell recoiled, his face twisting. "Confess? She'll tear me apart. My family's tried. Henshaw. It's why they're in there." The thudding above grew louder, and the ceiling buckled. a crack splitting the wood. The train lurched, and the windows fogged. The figures outside closer now, their hands pressing against the glass, leaving smudged prints that glowed faintly. Clara's flashlight caught a new detail, a locket identical to Ruth's. Hanging from the ceiling crack, its silver glinting, Samuel's photo inside. It hadn't been there before. Clara grabbed it. The vision snapped, and Clara gasped, the locket burning her palm. She wrote, "Second locket, Samuel's guilt. Curse needs Caldwell's confession." The thudding stopped, but the figures outside moved. Their silhouettes circling the train, Eleanor's laugh swelling, a promise of no escape. Clara shoved the locket at Caldwell, her voice fierce. "You're the last, Vance. Confess some lesin, or we're both lost." Caldwell's eyes darted to the corridor, where the green glow flared, the door to the last carriage now fully open, a void of light and shadow, leading them to the last carriage. The train was a trap, and Clara's vow had marked her, but she'd fight Eleanor with Caldwell's confession or die trying. The scream grew louder, and Eleanor's silhouette appeared in the passage, her charred hand reaching, promising doom. The Midnight Express shuddered as Clara Henshaw dragged Caldwell toward the glowing passage. Eleanor Vance's scream, a jagged blade that split the air. The dining car's cracked windows rattled under the pounding of shadowy figures outside, their hollow eyes glinting through the fog of Blackthorn Valley. The train's wheels ground a frantic rhythm, the hum from the last carriage a roar that shook the slick walls, now dripping with condensation that reeked of ash and blood. Clara's bag hung heavy with relics, scarf, journal, lockets, photos, ticket, hairpin, each a burning ember of the curse, their weight anchoring her to the fight. Her notebook, clutched in her trembling hand, bore the scrawl, "Second locket, Samuel's guilt. Curse needs Caldwell's confession." The air was a vice of rotting flowers, smoke, and copper, the sickly green glow from the open last carriage door pulsing like a wound. Caldwell's bloodied hand dripped onto the floor, his face a mask of dread, but Clara's grip on his arm was iron. Eleanor's charred silhouette loomed in the passage, her reaching hand a promise of oblivion. Yet Clara pushed forward, the second locket's warmth in her pocket, a faint hope against the curse's hunger. The passage was a tunnel of ice, the walls slick with a black sheen that smelled of burnt flesh. The green glow blinded, shadows writhing within. Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, their faces twisted, mouths open in silent pleas. Eleanor's scream softened, replaced by a low, guttural growl that vibrated through Clara's bones, synced with the trapped soul's whispers. "Clara, bring him, end us." The relics in her bag pulsed, as if alive, and the journal's words, the betrayer's heart, not just blood, burned in her mind. Caldwell's confession, Samuel Vance's guilt laid bare, was the ritual's missing piece, but the open door was a trap. Eleanor's rage a vortex that could swallow them both. Clara's hazel eyes locked onto the last carriage, its claw marks now a jagged script, confess or join. Her voice was steeled despite the fear clawing her chest. "You're doing this, Caldwell. Now." Caldwell stumbled, his blood smearing the floor, his voice a broken rasp. "She'll kill me, Henshaw. You saw her hand. She's not human anymore." Clara yanked him closer, the second locket glinting in her hand. "She's your family's sin. Samuel murdered her, and you're carrying his debt. Confess, or I'll drag you in there myself." The growl grew louder, and the train lurched, the passage tilting, the walls creaking like splintering bones. The figures outside pounded harder, glass shards falling, their hands leaving glowing prints that sizzled. Caldwell's eyes darted to the door, where Eleanor's silhouette grew sharper, her charred dress trailing ash, her eyes hollow pits of rage. He clutched his knife, his blood dripping, and nodded, his voice trembling. "All right, I'll do it. For Samuel, for all of us." Clara released him, her bag heavy as she pulled out the relics, arranging them in a hasty circle around Caldwell. Scarf, journal, Lockets, photos, ticket, hairpin. The ash trail glowed, merging with the circle, and the relics burned without flame, their light matching the door's green pulse. Caldwell knelt, his bloodied hand shaking, and began, his voice raw. "Eleanor Vance, I'm Samuel's blood." The last of his line. He betrayed you, sabotaged the tracks, locked you in that carriage to die for his lover. I carry his guilt, his sin. I confess it, all of it. The air tightened, the hum roaring, and Eleanor's growl became a scream, shaking the passage. The relics flared, the circle a ring of fire, and the door swung wide, revealing a void of green light, flames flickering within. The trapped souls' faces clear, Ruth, the grandmother, the salesman, their hands reaching. Clara's heart pounded, the journal's ritual flashing, the betrayer's heart, a vow to unbind. She stepped into the circle, her voice joining Caldwell's. "Eleanor, I offer his confession, his heart's truth. Release the train, release them." The words felt heavy, binding, and a vision hit. Eleanor in the burning carriage, her curse born from Samuel's betrayal, her soul fusing with the train. But now, Clara saw the ritual's flaw. Eleanor's rage was endless, her hunger for souls bottomless. The confession fed her, strengthened her, and the vow marked Clara as hers. The vision showed Clara in the carriage, her eyes hollow, her screams joining Ruth's. Clara gasped, snapping back. The circle of relics now ash, Caldwell's blood steaming, his body slumped, his eyes wide with terror. Eleanor's silhouette lunged from the door, her charred hand seizing Caldwell's wrist, her scream a deafening roar. Clara grabbed him, pulling back, but the trapped souls surged, their hands clawing at her bag, the relics scattering. The train tilted, the passage buckling, and Eleanor's voice boomed. Not a whisper, but a command. "Clara, you're mine." Caldwell screamed, his arm half in the void, his blood sizzling as Eleanor's grip tightened. Clara's flashlight fell, its beam catching a new relic, a rusted conductor's whistle, etched with SV, lying where the key had been. She grabbed it, its metal burning, and a vision hit. Samuel, blowing the whistle as the train derailed, sealing Eleanor's fate. Clara blew it, the sound a piercing wail that cut through Eleanor's scream, the green glow faltering, the souls recoiling. Eleanor's hand released Caldwell, her silhouette retreating, but the door stayed open, the void pulsing. Caldwell collapsed, gasping, his arm blistered, his blood pooling. Clara's notebook fell open, and she wrote, her hand shaking. Confession fed Eleanor, strengthened her. Whistle disrupted her, soul still trapped. The train stabilized, but the figures outside circled closer, their pounding relentless, the glass cracking wider. Clara dragged Caldwell back to the dining car, the ash trail following. Eleanor's growl softening, but her presence heavy. The whistle was a weapon, a piece of Samuel's betrayal, but it wasn't enough. The ritual had failed again, and Eleanor was stronger. Her hunger now fixed on Clara. She had to find another way, to use the whistle and Caldwell's blood without feeding the curse. But the open door was a wound, and Eleanor's eyes watched. Promising no escape, Clara slumped against the table, the relics scattered, the whistle burning in her hand. Caldwell's breathing was shallow, his eyes glazed. "It didn't work," he whispered. "She's coming for you now." The train's hum pulsed, and the dining car's walls creaked, a new sound joining, a soft, deliberate scratching, like nails on glass, from the corridor. Clara's head snapped up, the green glow spilling through, Eleanor's silhouette faintly visible, her head tilted, waiting. Clara wrote, "Eleanor stronger, wants me. Whistle key to fight back." The Midnight Express was a noose, and Clara was its knot, but the whistle gave her a chance. She had to face the last carriage, to confront Eleanor with Samuel's guilt, or join the shadows on the tracks. Chapter 8. The carriage opens. Clara Henshaw's fingers tightened around the rusted conductor's whistle, its etched initials, SV, a searing reminder of Samuel Vance's betrayal. The Midnight Express tore through the fog of Blackthorn Valley, its wheels screeching a frantic cadence that matched the pounding in her chest. The dining car was a shattered relic, its windows cracked, glass shards glinting under the sickly green glow spilling from the corridor. The air was a suffocating blend of ash, blood, and rotting flowers, now laced with a sharp, ozone-like tang, as if the train itself were electrified with Eleanor Vance's rage. Clara's bag lay heavy at her feet, the relics, scarf, journal, lockets, photos, ticket, hairpin, scorched and scattered from the failed ritual, their embers still warm. Her notebook, open on the table, bore the trembling scrawl, "Eleanor stronger, wants me. Whistle key to fight back." Caldwell slumped beside her, his blistered arm dripping blood, his breathing shallow, his bright eyes dulled by the near loss to Eleanor's grasp. The last carriage's open door was a void, its green pulse a heartbeat that called Clara's name, Eleanor's growl a promise of no escape. The dining car's walls creaked, the scratching from the corridor now a relentless clawing, like nails carving bone. The figures outside, Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in the gray coat, pressed closer, their glowing hands smearing the cracked windows, their hollow eyes fixed on Clara. The train's hum roared, vibrating through the floor, and Eleanor's presence was everywhere, in the ash trail circling them, in the relic's faint glow, in the whistle's burning weight. Clara's hazel eyes locked onto the corridor, where the last carriage's door hung wide, a maw of green light and shadow. The whistle had disrupted Eleanor, its piercing wail a shard of Samuel's guilt that weakened her grip, but the open door was a trap, and Clara knew stepping through meant facing the curse's heart. Her journalist's mind screamed for reason, but the train was a living nightmare, and every relic, every vision, had marked her as Eleanor's. Clara stood, her legs trembling, and tucked the whistle into her pocket, its heat a counterpoint to the key's absence. Caldwell's confession had fed Eleanor, strengthening her, and the ritual's failure had unbound the last carriage, letting her reach beyond its walls. The journal's note, the betrayer's heart, meant more than blood. It meant confronting Samuel's sin, and the whistle was Clara's only weapon. "We're not done," she said, her voice steady despite the fear. She grabbed Caldwell's arm, pulling him up, his weight heavy. The whistle hurt her. "We use it in the carriage to force her out." Caldwell's face twisted, his voice a rasp. "You're mad, Henshaw. That door's her domain. You go in, you don't come out." Clara's grip tightened, her eyes fierce. "Then help me. Tell me what Samuel did, everything. We end this, or we're both hers." Caldwell's eyes darted to the corridor, where the clawing grew louder, the green glow flaring. "Samuel, he didn't just sabotage the tracks," he whispered, his voice breaking. "He locked the last carriage, trapped Eleanor and 30 others. His lover was on board, safe in another car. He planned it all, down to the fire. Eleanor's curse, it's not just her. It's them, the others, bound to her rage." The train jolted, and the windows shattered, the figures outside surging, their hands reaching through, glowing prints sizzling on the floor. Clara's notebook trembled as she wrote. Samuel locked carriage, planned fire. Curse binds all victims. Like a storm brewing inside the train. Clara grabbed her bag, the relics her only allies, and moved toward the corridor, Caldwell stumbling behind. The passage was a freezer, the walls slick with black ichor that dripped like blood. The last carriage's door gaped, its claw marks now a script: enter or burn. The green glow pulsed, and shadows writhed within. Eleanor's silhouette, towering, her charred hands outstretched, the trapped souls circling her, their faces pleading. Clara's hand closed around the whistle. The interior was a frozen hell, its walls lined with frost, its seats covered in personal relics, coats, hats, a child's shoe, all belonging to the missing. The floor was ash, glowing faintly, and the windows showed not Blackthorn Valley, but a void, flames flickering in the distance. Eleanor stood at the far end, her charred form solid, her eyes hollow, her mouth open in a silent scream. Ruth, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in the gray coat, they hovered behind her, their forms blurring, their hands reaching. Clara's heart pounded, but she held the whistle, its heat her anchor. "Eleanor Vance," she said, her voice shaking, "I know Samuel's sin. He locked you here, let you burn. I'm here to end it." Eleanor's scream erupted, shaking the carriage, the relics in Clara's bag flaring. Caldwell collapsed at the threshold, his blood pooling, his voice a plea. "Blow the whistle, Henshaw." Clara raised it to her lips, the metal searing, and blew. A piercing wail that cut through Eleanor's scream, the green glow faltering, the souls recoiling. Eleanor lunged, her charred hand grazing Clara's arm, ice and fire in one touch. A vision hit, the 1923 derailment, Eleanor's screams, Samuel's whistle signaling the crash, his lover safe, his guilt a poison. Clara saw herself blowing the whistle, breaking the curse, or joining the souls. The vision snapped, and Clara blew again, the wail louder, the carriage shaking, the frost cracking, the relics on the seats glowing. Eleanor's form flickered, her scream weakening, but the souls surged, their hands clawing at Clara, their whispers desperate. "Free us, end it." The train tilted, the void outside, closing in, flames licking the windows. Clara's notebook fell, and she wrote, her hand shaking. "Whistle weakens Eleanor, souls fight back." Carriage alive. Caldwell crawled forward, his blood smearing the ash. His voice a gasp. "Keep going. It's working." But Eleanor's eyes locked onto Clara, her voice a venomous hiss. "You're mine, forever." The carriage's walls closed in, the relics burning, and Clara blew the whistle again, its wail a weapon, but the soul's hands tightened, pulling her deeper into the void. The Midnight Express was a grave, and Clara was its offering. The whistle her only chance to fight, or her final note. The Midnight Express groaned as Clara Henshaw blew the rusted conductor's whistle, its piercing wail slicing through Eleanor Vance's scream like a blade through flesh. The last carriage was a frozen inferno, its frost-covered walls cracking under the green glow's pulse. The air a suffocating blend of ash, blood, and rotting flowers, now laced with a searing heat that burned Clara's lungs. The floor was a glowing sea of ash, relics of the missing, coats, hats. A child's shoe scattered across the seats, their edges smoldering. Clara's bag had spilled, the relics, scarf, journal, lockets, photos, ticket, hairpin, flaring in a circle around her. Their light battling the void beyond the windows, where flames danced in an endless abyss. Her notebook lay open at her feet, the scrawl "Whistle weakens Eleanor, souls fight back." Carriage alive, trembling in the shaking light. E. Caldwell clung to the threshold, his bloodied arm dripping, his face a mask of pain and fear, his voice a faint rasp. "Keep going, Henshaw." Eleanor's charred silhouette towered at the carriage's far end, her hollow eyes blazing, her hands clawing the air as the trapped souls, Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in the gray coat, surge around her, their hands pulling at Clara, their whispers a desperate chorus. "Free us, end it." The whistle's wail faltered as Clara's breath gave out, her lips burning from the metal's heat. Eleanor's scream surged, the green glow flaring, the carriage's walls buckling inward, as if the train itself were swallowing her. The soul's hands tightened, icy and relentless, dragging Clara toward the void. Ruth's milky eyes met hers, pleading, but her grip was a chain, binding Clara to the curse. Clara's mind flashed to the journal, the betrayer's heart, a vow to unbind, and the vision of Samuel Vance, his whistle signaling the 1923 derailment, his guilt poisoning Eleanor's soul. The whistle was Samuel's sin. It sounded disruptor, but Eleanor's rage was a tide, and Clara was drowning. She blew again, the wail weaker, the souls recoiling, but Eleanor lunged. Her charred hand seizing Clara's wrist, ice and fire in one touch. Her voice a venomous hiss. "You're mine forever." A vision hit, sharper than before. Eleanor in the burning carriage. Her screams merging with the trapped 30. Her curse forging a prison from the train's iron. Samuel's lover, safe in another car, her face smug, while Samuel watched the fire, his whistle silent. His heart cold, Clara saw herself, standing in the carriage, her vow from the failed ritual a chain, her soul joining the others, her eyes hollow. The vision snapped, and Clara yanked free. Eleanor's grip leaving blisters on her wrist. The whistle fell, clattering on the ash, and Caldwell crawled forward, his blood smearing the floor, his voice a scream. "Use the relics. Find her." Clara's eyes darted to the circle. Scarf, journal, lockets, photos, ticket, hairpin, now burning with a white light, their glow pushing back the green. Clara dove for the relics, her hands searing as she gathered them, the journal's pages crumbling, the locket's chain snapping. She arranged them tighter, the hairpin at the center, its blood-stained tip glinting. "Eleanor Vance," she shouted, her voice raw. "I offer your pain, your betrayal." She grabbed Caldwell's knife, still wet with his blood, and slashed her palm, mixing her blood with his, dripping it onto the relics. The circle flared, the white light blinding, and the soul's whispers surged. "Yes, bind her." Eleanor's scream became a roar, the carriage shaking, the void outside closing in, flames licking the walls. Clara's notebook trembled as she wrote, her hand shaking. Blood binds relics, souls help. Eleanor fights. She blew the whistle again, its wail a dagger, and the souls turned on Eleanor, their hands clawing her, Ruth's face fierce, the grandmother's eyes blazing. Eleanor's form flickered, her charred body cracking, ash falling like snow. The green glow dimmed, but her eyes locked onto Clara, her voice a thunderclap. "You can't end me. I am a train." The carriage's walls pulsed, the relics burning hotter, and a new vision hit. The 1923 derailment, the last carriage's fire, but now Clara saw Eleanor's curse in full, her soul fusing with the train's iron, the 30 victims bound to her. Their pain or fuel. The ritual's truth was clear. Eleanor couldn't be unbound, only contained, and Clara's blood, mixed with Caldwell's, was the seal. The vision showed Clara sealing the carriage, the door locking, but her own face fading, her soul trapped. Clara gasped, snapping back, the relics a furnace, the soul's hands now pulling Eleanor into the void. Caldwell staggered to his feet, his blood pooling, his voice a plea. "Seal it, Henshaw! Use the whistle! Lock her in!" Clara grabbed the whistle, its metal molten, and blew a final, deafening wail. The carriage shook, the walls cracking, the green glow collapsing into the void. Eleanor's silhouette shattered, her scream fading, the soul's hands dragging her fragments into the flames. The relics burned to ash, the circle collapsing, and the door slammed shut, its claw marks vanishing, the green light gone. The train stabilized, the hum softening, the air clearing, but the carriage was still, too still. The relics on the seats, coats, hats, the child's shoe, now dust. Clara's notebook fell, and she wrote, "Whistle sealed Eleanor, souls took her." Carriage locked. "Am I free?" Caldwell collapsed, his breathing ragged, his arm blistered. "You did it," he whispered, but his eyes were wary, as if the train were listening. Clara's wrist burned, Eleanor's touch a scar, and her bloodied palm throbbed. The door was locked, the curse contained, but the train's rhythm felt wrong. Too quiet, like a predator waiting. She stood, her bag empty, the relics gone, and moved to the door, her hand hovering over the handle. It was cold, unyielding, but a faint whisper came through. Eleanor's voice, distant, venomous. "Clara, not over." The train jolted, and the dining car's lights flared, revealing a new relic on the floor. A single, charred photo of Eleanor, her eyes alive, watching. Clara's heart sank, her notebook trembling as she wrote. Eleanor contained, not gone. Train still hers. The Midnight Express was a cage, and Clara was still inside. The whistle had bought time, but Eleanor's curse was the train's pulse. And Clara's blood had marked her deeper. She helped Caldwell up, his weight heavy, and they staggered to the dining car. The figures outside gone, the fog lifting. The train rolled on, but the silence was a lie. Eleanor's whisper a promise of return. Clara had to find a way to destroy the curse, not just contain it. But the photo in her pocket was a warning. She was running out of time, and the train was waiting for her to falter. Chapter 9. The First Tragedy. Clara Henshaw's hand trembled as she clutched the charred photo of Eleanor Vance, her hollow eyes glinting with a life that refused to fade. The Midnight Express rumbled through the thinning fog of Blackthorn Valley, its wheels grinding a subdued rhythm. The hum from the last carriage now a faint pulse, like a heart slowed but not stopped. The dining car was a battered relic, its cracked windows letting in a chill that carried the faint scent of ash and blood. The rotting flowers gone, but replaced by a stale, metallic tang. Like rusted iron, Clara's notebook lay open on a splintered table. The words Eleanor contained, not gone. Train still hers scrawled in a hand that shook with exhaustion and fear. Her bag was light. The relics, scarf, journal, lockets, photos, ticket, hairpin, burned to ash in the last carriage, their loss a hollow victory. Caldwell slumped across from her, his blistered arm bandaged with a torn sleeve, his bloodied knife glinting beside him, his breathing ragged but steady. The locked door to the last carriage was a temporary seal. But Eleanor's whisper, Clara, not over, lingered, a venomous promise that coiled around Clara's soul. The dining car's lights flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to shift, as if Eleanor's presence still clung to the train's bones. Clara's wrist burned where Eleanor's charred hand had touched her, the blisters a scar of the curse's hold. Her blood, mixed with Caldwell's, had sealed the ritual containing Eleanor and the trapped souls. Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in the gray coat. But the photo was proof the curse endured. Clara's hazel eyes fixed on the corridor, where the passage to the last carriage was dark, the green glow gone. But the silence was a predator's pause, not peace. The whistle, now cold in her pocket, had been Samuel Vance's tool, its wail disrupting Eleanor's rage, but it wasn't enough. The train was Eleanor's domain, her soul fused with its iron, and Clara was still marked. Her vow a chain she couldn't break. Caldwell stirred, his voice a rasp. "You think it's over? She's still here, Henshaw. Always will be." Clara's jaw tightened, her pen scratching. Caldwell fears Eleanor's return. Curse tied to train's iron. "It's not over," she said, her voice steady despite the dread. "The whistle worked, but we need more. Samuel's betrayal started this. We need the truth. Every detail of 1923. Caldwell's eyes darkened, his hand trembling as he touched his bandage. "You saw it, didn't you? In there. The fire, the screams. My great-grandfather's sin." Clara nodded, the vision of the derailment vivid. Samuel locking the last carriage, his lover safe. Eleanor's screams as the flames consumed her. "I saw enough," she said. "But there's something missing. Why the train? Why does it keep running?" The train slowed, its rhythm faltering, and the windows revealed a desolate stretch of tracks. And a faint hum returned, not from the last carriage, but from the tracks themselves, vibrating through the floor. A soft thud broke the silence, coming from Clara's bag. "Here we burned. Here I stay." Clara's hand shook as she tucked it into her notebook, writing, map from 1923, mile 47 marked. Eleanor tied to derailment site. The train jolted and the lights dimmed, plunging the car into a sickly yellow glow. A vision hit Clara, unbidden, pulling her into 1923. The Midnight Express, gleaming new, steaming through Blackthorn Valley under a storm-choked sky. Eleanor Vance stood in the last carriage, her face pale, her hands clutching a locket Samuel's gift, now a lie. Passengers crowded around her, 30 souls unaware of their fate. Samuel, in the locomotive, blew his whistle, the signal for the sabotage, his lover's face in his mind. The tracks buckled, the train derailed, and the last carriage crumpled, a steel tomb. Flames erupted, slow and cruel. Eleanor's screams merging with the others, her curse born in blood and fire. This train will carry my wrath forever. Clara saw the iron twist, Eleanor's soul fusing with it. The carriage becoming her prison, the tracks her eternal path. The vision snapped, and Clara gasped, her notebook falling, her pen scratching. Vision of 1923, Eleanor's soul in iron. Trainer prison. Caldwell's eyes widened, his voice a whisper. You saw it, didn't you? The derailment. Clara nodded, her throat tight. She's not just in the carriage. She's the train, the tracks, this valley. The curse isn't just about your blood. It's about this place. The hum grew louder, the tracks vibrating, and a faint green glow flickered outside. Not from the carriage, but from the ground, where the markers stood. The figures returned. Ruth, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in the gray coat, standing on the tracks, their silhouettes blurred, their hands pointing to mile 47. Eleanor's silhouette loomed largest, her charred form glowing, her eyes fixed on Clara. The train slowed, almost stopping, and the metallic tang became a chokehold. The air alive with Eleanor's presence. Clara stood, her legs trembling, and grabbed the whistle, its metal warm again. We're at the heart of it, she said, her voice fierce. Mile 47. If we're going to end this, it's here. Caldwell recoiled, his face ashen. You're mad. She's strongest here. You'll wake her again. The train jolted, and the windows fogged. The figures outside closer, their hands pressing, their glowing prints sizzling. A new sound emerged, a low, guttural moan, not from the carriage but from the tracks, shaking the car. Clara's notebook trembled as she wrote, Mile 47, Eleanor's ground. Moan from tracks. The whistle was her only weapon, but the map was a guide, pointing to the derailment's heart. She had to face Eleanor here, to use the whistle and Caldwell's blood, but the moan warned her the train was alive, and Eleanor was waiting. Clara moved to the corridor, the map in one hand, the whistle in the other, Caldwell staggering behind. The passage to the last carriage was dark, but the hum was everywhere, the tracks glowing faintly through the floor. Eleanor's whisper returned, soft and venomous. Clara, here I began, here you end. The Midnight Express was a wound, and Clara was its blood, the whistle her only chance to cut deeper, or bleed out. The Midnight Express shuddered to a near halt at mile 47, its wheels grinding a low moan that echoed the guttural sound rising from the tracks below. Clara Henshaw gripped the soot-stained map, its red-inked circle around mile 47 pulsing under her trembling fingers, as if Eleanor Vance's curse had inked itself into the paper. The passage to the last carriage was a black void, the green glow gone but replaced by a faint, sickly shimmer from the floor, where the track's vibrations carried Eleanor's presence. The air was a suffocating blend of ash, blood, and rusted iron. The rotting flowers sent now a distant memory, overtaken by a raw, earthy reek like an open grave. Clara's notebook hung open in her bag, the scrawl mile 47, Eleanor's ground. Moan from tracks barely legible in the flickering light of her flashlight. The conductor's whistle burned in her pocket, its heat a counterpoint to the cold dread in her chest. Caldwell staggered behind her, his blistered arm dripping blood, his face a mask of resignation, his voice a rasp. This is where she died. Henshaw, you're walking in her grave. Clara's hazel eyes fixed on the last carriage's locked door, Eleanor's whisper a venomous hook. Clara, here I began, here you end. The train's hum was a living pulse, radiating from the tracks, syncing with the moan that shook the passage's slick walls. Clara's bag was light, the relics burned to ash, but the map and whistle were enough. Their connection to 1923, a lifeline to the curse's heart. The vision of the derailment, Eleanor's screams, Samuel's betrayal, the fire sealing her soul to the train's iron, had shown Clara the truth. Eleanor was the Midnight Express. Her rage fused with the tracks at mile 47, where 30 souls burned. The whistle, Samuel's tool, had weakened her, but containing her wasn't enough. Clara had to destroy the curse, to sever Eleanor's hold on the train, and mile 47 was the battleground. Her blood, mixed with Caldwell's, had marked her, but the map's note, "Here we burned. Here I stay," pointed to a final confrontation. The passage grew colder, the walls dripping with black ichor that smelled of fire and death. The last carriage's door loomed, its claw marks gone, but a new script glowed faintly. "Finish it." Clara's hand trembled as she touched the handle, expecting resistance, but it turned, the door creaking open with a blast of frigid air. The carriage was a frozen tomb, its frost-covered walls glinting, the seats empty, the relics of the missing coats, hats, the child's shoe, gone, as if the train had consumed them. The floor was a mirror of ash, reflecting the track's glow, and at the far end stood Eleanor, her charred form solid, her hollow eyes blazing, her hands outstretched. The trapped souls, Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in gray, hovered behind her, their forms faint, their whispers silent, their eyes fixed on Clara, waiting. Clara stepped inside, her boots crunching ash, her flashlight trembling. Caldwell hesitated at the threshold, his blood pooling, his voice a plea. "Don't do this, Henshaw. She'll take you." Clara ignored him, her voice steady despite the fear. "Eleanor Vance, I know your pain. Samuel betrayed you, lock you here, let you burn. I'm here to end it at mile 47. Eleanor's scream erupted, a deafening roar that shook the carriage. The track's moan rising, the walls pulsing with green light. The whistle burned in Clara's pocket, and she pulled it out, its metal searing her palm. "You're not the train," she said, her voice fierce. "You're a prisoner, same as them." She gestured to the souls, Ruth's milky eyes glinting, the grandmother's face stern. Eleanor's silhouette surged, her claws grazing Clara's arm. A jolt of ice and fire. Clara blew the whistle, its wail a piercing cry that cut through Eleanor's scream, the green glow faltering, the souls stirring. The tracks shook, the carriage tilting, and a vision hit. The 1923 derailment, the last carriage's fire, Eleanor's curse binding her soul to the iron at mile 47. But now, Clara saw the curse's anchor, a specific rail twisted and scorched, glowing under the train, where Eleanor's blood had spilled. The vision showed Clara destroying it, the whistle's sound shattering the iron. But Eleanor's eyes locked onto her, promising death. The vision snapped, and Clara blew again, the wail louder, the souls surging, their hands clawing at Eleanor, pulling her back. The track's moan became a scream. The rail's glow visible through the floor, pulsing with Eleanor's heart. Eleanor's voice boomed, not a whisper, but a command. "You can't break me. I am forever." Her claws seized Clara's wrist, the blisters from her earlier touch splitting, blood dripping onto the ash. Caldwell staggered in, his knife raised, his voice a shout. "The rail, Henshaw, break it." Clara yanked free, her blood mixing with the ash, and blew the whistle, its wail a weapon. The rail's glow flared, cracks forming, and the souls surged, Ruth's hands fierce, the grandmother's eyes blazing, dragging Eleanor toward the void. The carriage shook, the walls cracking, the tracks buckling, and Clara's notebook fell, her pen scratching. Rail is anchor, whistle breaks it. Eleanor fights. Eleanor's form flickered, her scream weakening, but her eyes burned, her claws reaching for Clara's heart. Clara blew the whistle, its sound a deafening roar, the rail shattering. The green glow collapsing. Eleanor's silhouette shattered, her scream fading, the souls vanishing into the void, their whispers silent. The carriage stabilized, the track still, the air clearing. But the floor was cold, the ash gone. Clara collapsed, her wrist bleeding, the whistle cold in her hand. Caldwell fell beside her, his breathing shallow, his eyes wide. "Is she gone?" he whispered. Clara's eyes fixed on the door, now locked, its surface smooth, no marks. Her notebook trembled as she wrote. Rail broken, Eleanor shattered. Souls freed? The train rolled on. But the silence was heavy, Eleanor's photo in her pocket a faint weight, its eyes still watching. The Midnight Express was quiet, but Clara knew the curse might linger, waiting for her to falter. Chapter 10. The Pact Unraveled. Clara Henshaw's bloodied wrist throbbed as she slumped against the cold floor of the last carriage, the conductor's whistle a lifeless weight in her trembling hand. The Midnight Express rolled slowly through Blackthorn Valley, its wheels grinding a muted cadence. The hum from the tracks silenced after the rail at mile 47 shattered. The carriage was a hollow shell, its frost-covered walls now bare, the ash floors swept clean, the relics of the missing, coats, hats, the child's shoe, gone, as if the train had exhaled them into oblivion. The air was thin, stripped of ash and blood, but a faint metallic tang lingered, like iron cooling after a forge. Clara's notebook lay open beside her. The scrawl rail broken, Eleanor shattered. Souls freed? Etched in a hand that shook with exhaustion. Caldwell lay crumpled nearby, his blistered arms still bleeding, his breathing shallow, his bright eyes clouded with disbelief. The locked door to the last carriage stood smooth, its claw marks erased, but the charred photo of Eleanor Vance in Clara's pocket burned with a subtle heat. Her hollow eyes a silent warning that the curse might not be broken. The train's silence was a lie, a predator's pause that set Clara's nerves on edge. The whistle's final wail had shattered the rail, Eleanor's anchor, and the souls. Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in gray, had dragged her fragmented form into the void, their whispers fading. But Clara's hazel eyes fixed on the door, her journalist's mind grappling with the photo's weight. Eleanor's soul had fused with the train's iron, her curse a living thing. And the rail's destruction felt too clean, too final. Her blood, mixed with Caldwell's, had sealed the ritual, but the vision of herself, trapped in the carriage, eyes hollow, lingered. Eleanor's whisper faint but persistent. Clara, not over. Caldwell stirred, his voice a rasp. "You did it, Henshaw. She's gone." His words lacked conviction, his eyes darting to the door, as if expecting it to swing open. Clara's jaw tightened, her pen scratching. Caldwell hopeful, but photo burns. Curse lingers? "She's not gone," she said, her voice low, steady despite the fear. The rail was her anchor, but the train's still hers. "We need to know how deep this goes." Caldwell's face paled, his hand trembling as he touched his bandage. "You saw mile 47. That's where she died, where it started. What more do you want?" Clara pulled the photo from her pocket, its edges curling, Eleanor's eyes glinting. "This. She's still here, Caldwell. We missed something." The train jolted, its rhythm faltering, and the dining car's lights flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to pulse. A soft thud came from Clara's bag, her heart spiking as she opened it. Inside was a new relic, a small, leather-bound journal, not Eleanor's but older, its cover stamped with Midnight Express, 1923. Clara's hands shook as she opened it, finding pages in a neat, masculine hand, Samuel Vance's. The first entry, dated October 1923, read, "The train is ready, but Eleanor suspects. She'll ruin everything. The plan is set for mile 47. Another, November 2nd. She's in the last carriage, locked. The fire will end it. My love waits in the third car." The final entry, November 3rd, was smeared with soot. "It's done. She's gone, but the train, it moves wrong. I hear her." Clara's stomach lurched, her pen scratching. Samuel's journal planned Eleanor's death. Train changed after. The journal was a confession, proof Samuel's betrayal was calculated. his lover's safety ensured while Eleanor and 30 others burned. But the last line, "I hear her," suggested the curse began instantly, Eleanor's soul claiming the train before her body cooled. Clara shoved the journal at Caldwell, her voice fierce. "Your great-grandfather didn't just kill her. He made her this. The train's her body now, and we didn't kill it." Caldwell's eyes widened, his voice a whisper. "Then what? Destroy the train? We're on it, Henshaw." The train slowed, the windows revealing a desolate stretch of tracks, the mile 47 marker gone. But a faint green shimmer lingered on the rails, pulsing faintly, like a wound not fully closed. A low moan broke the silence, not from the tracks, but from the last carriage's door, soft but growing. The same guttural sound that had haunted Clara since Hollow Creek. The lights dimmed, the metallic tang sharpening, and the photo in her hand grew hotter, Eleanor's eyes seeming to move. Clara stood, her legs trembling, and moved to the corridor, the journal in one hand, the whistle in the other. The passage was cold, the walls dry but vibrating with the moan. The door to the last carriage locked, but radiating a presence. She pressed her ear to it, her heart pounding, and heard whispers, not Eleanor's, but the soul's, faint and desperate. She's not gone, she waits. A new vision hit. The derailment's aftermath, the train rebuilt, but Eleanor's soul in the iron, her curse demanding a sacrifice, Samuel's blood or another's. To sustain her, Clara saw herself, marked by her vow, her blood a new offering. The vision snapped, and Clara gasped, her notebook falling, her pen scratching. Soul's worn, Eleanor waits. Curse needs sacrifice. The moan grew louder, the door trembling, and Caldwell staggered to her side, his face ashen. "She's not gone," he whispered. "She's in the train, waiting for us to slip." Clara's eyes locked onto the door. The journals weighed a clue. Samuel's blood started this. Yours might end it, but not with a ritual. She wants to sacrifice Caldwell. One of us. The train jolted, the moan becoming a growl, and the green shimmer outside flared. Eleanor's silhouette faintly visible on the tracks, her head tilted, watching. Clara's hand closed around the whistle, its heat returning, and she knew the curse wasn't broken, only paused. Eleanor's hunger now fixed on her blood, or Caldwell's, to keep the train alive. The Midnight Express's growl from the last carriage deepened, a primal rumble that shook the passage's cold walls, its echo merging with the faint pulse of the tracks beneath. Clara Henshaw's hand tightened around Samuel Vance's journal, its pages a confession of betrayal that fueled Eleanor Vance's curse, while the conductor's whistle in her pocket burned, a fragile weapon against the train's hunger. The air was thick with rusted iron and ash, the faint green shimmer from the tracks outside, casting a sickly glow through the passage's narrow window. Clara's notebook hung open in her trembling hand, the scrawl soul's worn, Eleanor waits. Curse needs sacrifice, a stark warning of the choice looming. Caldwell stood beside her, his blistered arm dripping blood, his weathered face etched with dread, his voice a broken whisper. "One of us, Henshaw. She won't stop till she gets it." The locked door to the last carriage vibrated, Eleanor's silhouette faintly visible beyond the tracks, her hollow eyes fixed on Clara, her whisper a venomous hook. "Clara, your blood, or his." The train was a living trap, and Clara was its marked prey, her vow and blood a chain to Eleanor's wrath. Clara's hazel eyes narrowed, her journalist's mind clawing for clarity amidst the fear. Samuel's journal confirmed the curse's demand, a sacrifice, his blood, or a substitute, to sustain Eleanor's hold on the train. The rail's destruction at mile 47 had weakened her, but the train's iron was her body, and Clara's blood, mixed with Caldwell's in the ritual, had marked her as a candidate. The soul's warning, "She waits," meant Eleanor was biding her time, her hunger paused but insatiable. Clara's wrist throbbed, the blisters from Eleanor's touch a scar, and the charred photo in her pocket pulsed, its heat a reminder of Eleanor's gaze. "We're not giving her what she wants," Clara said, her voice fierce, though her legs trembled. There's another way. Break the train, not us. Caldwell's eyes widened, his voice a hiss. Break it? This ain't just a machine. It's her. You saw mile 47. She's in the tracks, the wheels, everything. The train jolted, the growls swelling, and the passage's walls creaked, dripping with black ichor that smelled of fire and death. A soft thud came from Clara's bag, her heart spiking as she opened it. Inside was a new relic, a rusted rail spike, its tip stained with dried blood, etched with mile 47, 1923. Clara's breath caught, her pen scratching. Rail spike. Eleanor's blood. Curse's new anchor. The spike was heavy, warm, a piece of the derailment's heart, and its presence was no accident. The train was guiding her, offering a tool or a trap. The growl softened, replaced by a faint sob, the trapped soul's voices weaving through. Break it, free us. Clara's mind flashed to the vision. Eleanor's soul fusing with the iron. The rail at mile 47 her anchor. The spike was a remnant, a new focus for the curse, and breaking it might sever Eleanor's hold, or feed her hunger. The passage grew colder, the green shimmer outside flaring, Eleanor's silhouette closer, her charred hands pressing the tracks, her eyes burning. Clara gripped the spike, its heat searing, and turned to Caldwell. Her voice urgent. This is it. The rail's gone, but this spike's hers. We destroy it with the whistle outside the train. Caldwell recoiled, his face ashen. Outside? At mile 47? You're mad. She'll tear us apart. The train slowed, the tracks pulsed stronger, and the door to the last carriage rattled, a low moan escaping. Eleanor's voice clear. Clara, give me him, or you. Clara's hand closed around the whistle, its heat matching the spikes, and she knew the sacrifice was a lie. Eleanor wanted both. Their blood to fuel the train's eternal run. A vision hit, unbidden. The 1923 derailment. Eleanor's blood soaking the rail spike as the carriage burned, her curse binding the train's iron. Clara saw herself, holding the spike, blowing the whistle, shattering it on the tracks, but Eleanor's claws reached, her scream swallowing Clara's soul. The vision showed Caldwell, offering himself, his blood spilling, but Eleanor's laughter grew, the train rolling on. The vision snapped, and Clara gasped, her notebook trembling as she wrote. Spike is Curse's heart. Breaking it risks us both. The moan grew louder, the door cracking open, a sliver of green light spilling through, Eleanor's hand reaching, her nails scraping the floor. Clara grabbed Caldwell, pulling him back, her voice fierce. We get to the tracks. Now. The train lurched, the passage tilting, and Clara staggered to the dining car, Caldwell stumbling behind. The windows were a spiderweb of cracks. The figures outside, Ruth, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in gray, gone, but their glowing prints remained, sizzling. The air was a freezer, the spike burning in Clara's hand. The whistle a beacon. She found a side door, rusted but unlocked, and forced it open. The night air a blast of cold fog. The tracks glowed faintly, mile 47's marker a shadow in the distance. Clara jumped, her boots hitting gravel, Caldwell following, his blood smearing the ground. The train idled, its hum a low threat, Eleanor's silhouette towering on the tracks, her voice a command. Choose or I take both. Clara raised the spike, the whistle to her lips, and blew. A piercing wail that cut through the fog, the track's glow faltering, Eleanor's silhouette flickering. The soul's voices surged. Break it now. Clara slammed the spike against the rail, the metal cracking, blood oozing from its core. Eleanor's scream erupted, the train shaking, the ground splitting. Caldwell grabbed the spike, his blood mixing with Clara's, and struck again, the crack widening, the glow dying. Eleanor's form shattered, her scream fading, but the train lurched forward, its wheels grinding, the side door slamming shut. Clara's notebook fell, her pen scratching, spike broken, Eleanor gone. Train moves. The fog swallowed the tracks. And Clara realized the sacrifice wasn't blood, It was her, left behind, the train rolling on, Eleanor's photo in her pocket cold, but her whisper silent. The curse was broken, but Clara was alone. The Midnight Express, a ghost vanishing into the night. Chapter 11. The Midnight Ritual. Clara Henshaw stood alone on the gravel beside the tracks. The Midnight Express's taillights fading into the fog of Blackthorn Valley, its wheels grinding a final, mocking cadence. The rusted rail spike lay shattered at her feet, its bloodied core dull, the glow of mile 47 extinguished. The air was cold and empty, stripped of ash, blood, and rotting flowers, leaving only a faint, bitter chill that smelled of damp earth. Her notebook lay crumpled in the gravel, its pages splayed, the scrawl spike broken, Eleanor gone. The blisters from Eleanor Vance's touch a fading scar, but the charred photo in her pocket was silent, its weight lighter, as if Eleanor's hollow eyes had finally closed. The man in gray, only shadows that shifted in the mist. Clara's bag was gone, lost in the train's departure, its relics, scarf, journal, lockets, photos, ticket. Clara's breath clouded in the cold, her heart pounding with a mix of relief and dread. The spike's destruction had severed Eleanor's anchor, the soul's whispers, break it, now, fulfilled. But the train's escape left her stranded, the curse's end ambiguous. Had she truly broken it, or merely paused its hunger? The photo's silence was no answer, and the fog's embrace felt alive. Watching, Clara knelt, retrieving her notebook, her pen trembling as she wrote, stranded at mile 47. Curse broken? Train left me. The words fell hollow, her doubt a splinter. The ritual demanded a sacrifice, and she'd chosen herself, stepping off the train to shatter the spike, knowing it might leave. But Eleanor's whisper, choose or I take both, had been a lie, and Clara had outplayed her, or had she? The journal's truth, Samuel's betrayal, Eleanor's blood, the train's iron soul, suggested the curse was the Midnight Express itself, and its departure might mean freedom or a deeper trap. Clara stood, her boots crunching gravel, and scanned the fog for a path, a village, anything. The valley was silent, no hum, no moan, but a faint rustle came from the fog, like fabric dragging across stone. Her pulse spiked, and she gripped the whistle, its cold metal a comfort, though its power was spent. The rustle grew closer, and a shape emerged. A woman, pale, her dress faded blue, her hair pinned in a 1950s style. Ruth Carter. Clara's breath caught, her voice shaking. Ruth? The curse, it's over. You're free. Ruth's milky eyes glinted, her lips curving, not a smile, but a grimace. Free, she said, her voice soft, hollow. You broke the spike, Clara, but the train's still hers. She's quiet, not gone. You're the sacrifice, left to wander. Clara's stomach twisted, her pen scratching. Ruth appears, says train still Eleanor's. I'm the sacrifice. Then why are you here? She asked, stepping closer, the fog coiling around Ruth's form. Ruth's gaze drifted to the tracks, her voice a whisper. To warn you. She's waiting, in the iron, for another to board. You stop her, but not forever. The fog parted, revealing a rusted sign. Hollow Creek, 5 miles, and Clara's heart sank. The station where she'd boarded a lifetime ago was her only way out. Ruth's form flickered, her voice fading. Find a journal, Clara. Samuel's, not hers. It's on the train with Caldwell. It's the key. She vanished, the fog swallowing her, and the rustle stopped, leaving Clara alone. Her notebook trembled as she wrote. Ruth warns of journal, Samuel's with Caldwell. Curse dormant, not dead. The whistle was useless now, but the photo in her pocket stirred, a faint warmth returning. Eleanor's eyes glinting in her mind. The train was gone, but its iron soul lingered, and Clara was its loose end, marked by her blood and vow. She started walking, her boots heavy on the gravel. The fog, a suffocating veil. The track stretched toward Hollow Creek, their iron dull but alive, as if Eleanor's curse pulsed faintly within. A new vision hit, unbidden, the 1923 derailment. Eleanor's blood on the spike, but now Clara saw Samuel, after the fire, boarding the rebuilt train, his journal in hand, writing, "She's in the iron, but I'll bind her." The vision showed him hiding the journal in the locomotive, a vow to trap Eleanor, but failing, his blood not enough. Clara snapped back, gasping, her pen scratching, vision of Samuel's journal. In locomotive, key to binding Eleanor. The train was out there, with Caldwell carrying the journal, and Clara had to find it, to finish what Samuel started. The fog thickened, the tracks vanishing, and a low moan rose, not from the iron but from the valley itself. Eleanor's voice a distant echo. "Clara, you can't run." Clara's heart pounded, her hand on the whistle, but she kept walking. The sign's promise of Hollow Creek, her only guide. The Midnight Express was a ghost, its curse dormant but alive, and Clara was its hunter now, her blood the bait, her resolve the blade. The photo burned, and she knew Eleanor was waiting in the iron for her to board again. Clara Henshaw's boots crunched on the gravel beside the tracks. Each step toward Hollow Creek a defiance against the fog that clawed at her like a living thing. The Midnight Express was gone, its taillights swallowed by Blackthorn Valley's mist. But the faint moan from the valley lingered, Eleanor Vance's voice a distant, venomous thread. "Clara, you can't run." The air was cold and sharp, the metallic tang of rusted iron now mixed with a damp, mossy reek, as if the earth itself were rotting. Clara's notebook hung open in her trembling hand, the scrawl vision of Samuel's journal in locomotive. Key to binding Eleanor, a fragile map to her next move. The conductor's whistle was cold in her pocket, its power spent, and the charred photo of Eleanor was a silent weight. Its faint warmth a reminder that the curse was dormant, not dead. Her wrist throbbed, the blisters from Eleanor's touch a fading scar, but Clara's hazel eyes burned with resolve. She was alone, the sacrifice left behind, but Ruth Carter's warning, "Find the journal," Samuel's with Caldwell, was a lifeline, and Clara would hunt the train to end Eleanor's hold. The fog thickened, the tracks a barely visible line stretching toward Hollow Creek, 5 miles away. The rusted sign was gone, swallowed by the mist, and the valley was a void, its silence broken only by the rustle of unseen things in the underbrush. Clara's journalist mind raced, piecing together the vision. Samuel Vance, after the 1923 derailment, hiding his journal in the locomotive, a failed vow to bind Eleanor's soul. The journal was the key, not to destroy the curse, but to trap it, as Samuel had intended. Caldwell, the last Vance, was on the train, carrying Samuel's blood and perhaps the journal, unaware of its power. Clara's blood, marked by her vow, made her a target, but also a weapon. She'd find the train, force Caldwell to face his ancestors' sin, and bind Eleanor for good. The photo stirred, its warmth growing, and Clara's hand tightened on her notebook. Writing, "Must reach Hollow Creek, find train." Journal in locomotive. A soft scrape broke the silence, like nails on iron, coming from the tracks ahead. Clara froze, her flashlight cutting through the fog, revealing nothing but glinting rails. The moan returned, louder, vibrating through the ground, Eleanor's voice weaving in. "Clara, I see you." Her pulse spiked, and she gripped the whistle, useless now but a comfort. The scrape grew closer, rhythmic like footsteps on the gravel, and a shape emerged, a figure, tall and gaunt, its edges blurring in the mist. Not Ruth, not Eleanor, but a man, his face hollow, his eyes white voids. The man in the gray coat, one of Eleanor's souls, his voice a rasp. "You're too late, seeker. The train's hers, always will be." Clara's voice shook, but she held her ground. "I broke the spike. She's weakened. Where's the journal?" The man's lips curled, his form flickering, with the betrayer's kin. "But she's waking, Clara. Your blood calls her." The figure lunged, its icy hand grazing her arm, and a vision hit. The rebuilt Midnight Express, 1924, Samuel boarding, his journal hidden in the locomotive's panel, his hands trembling as he wrote. Her soul's in the iron, but I'll trap her. Eleanor's scream echoed, her claws reaching, and Samuel's blood spilled, not enough to bind her. The vision shifted, showing Caldwell now. In the locomotive, the journal in his hands, unaware, Eleanor's silhouette behind him, her eyes alive. The vision snapped, and Clara stumbled back, the man in gray gone, the fog coiling tighter. Her notebook trembled as she wrote. Man in gray, vision of journal with Caldwell. Eleanor waking. The tracks vibrated, the moans swelling, and Clara ran, her boots pounding gravel. Hollow Creek her only hope. The fog parted, revealing the dilapidated shack of Hollow Creek Station, its peeling paint glowing faintly in the moonlight. The platform was empty, the track silent, but a faint hum stirred, distant, growing. The train was coming back. Clara's heart pounded, her pen scratching. Hollow Creek, train returns. Must find Caldwell. She climbed onto the platform, her flashlight sweeping the shack, finding a rusted timetable nailed to the wall, dated 2025, listing the Midnight Express, midnight run to Raleigh. The clock above read 11:50 p.m., 10 minutes to go. The hum grew louder, and the tracks glowed faintly, a green shimmer pulsing, Eleanor's presence stirring. Clara's hand closed around the photo, its heat searing, and Eleanor's whisper returned. Stronger, Clara, board again or die here. Headlights pierced the fog, the Midnight Express emerging, its black locomotive hissing steam, its maroon cars faded but whole, the last carriage pristine. Its door locked, its windows dark. The train stopped, its hum a low threat, and the side door creaked open, revealing Caldwell, his face pale, his arm bandaged, clutching Samuel's journal. Henshaw? He rasped, his eyes wide. You're alive. Clara climbed aboard, her voice fierce. The journal, Caldwell. It's the key to binding her. The door slammed shut, the train lurching forward. And the last carriage's door rattled, a low growl escaping. Eleanor's silhouette faintly visible, her claws scraping. Clara's notebook fell open, and she wrote, Train back, Caldwell has journal. Eleanor stirs. The Midnight Express was a loop, and Clara was inside again. The journal her weapon, but Eleanor's growl promised a fight, and Clara's blood was the prize. Caldwell's trembling hands, Samuel Vance's leather-bound confession, glowed faintly under the flickering emergency lamps, its pages a key to binding Eleanor Vance's curse, casting sickly shadows across the cracked windows. Clara's notebook hung open in her bag. The scrawl train back, Caldwell has journal. Eleanor stirs a stark reminder of the fight ahead. His blistered arm dripping blood through his makeshift bandage, his voice a rasp. You shouldn't be here, Henshaw. She's waking. The train's growl, low and guttural, vibrated through the floor. Eleanor's silhouette scraping at the last carriage's door, her whisper a venomous hook. Clara, you came back. The dining car was a ruin, its tables overturned, glass shards glinting like teeth. The fog outside Blackthorn Valley pressing against the windows, hiding the tracks. Clara's hazel eyes locked onto the journal. The journalist's mind racing. Samuel's vision, hiding the journal in the locomotive, vowing to trap Eleanor. Minute held a ritual, a way to bind her soul to the train's iron without feeding her hunger. Her blood, marked by the earlier ritual, made her a target, but Caldwell's as Samuel's heir was the key. The photo's heat pulsed, and Clara's wrist throbbed. The blisters from Eleanor's touch a scar of her claim. The journal, Clara said, her voice steady despite the dread. What's in it? We bind her now. Caldwell's eyes darted to the corridor, where the growl grew louder, the door rattling. It's madness, he whispered. Samuel tried. Pages of rituals, blood, vows. Didn't work. She took him. Clara snatched the journal, its leather warm, and flipped it open, her flashlight trembling. Samuel's neat script detailed the 1923 derailment, his betrayal, and a desperate plan. Her soul's in the iron, but a circle of blood and iron, my blood. Can cage her. The locomotive's heart, where I hid this, is the altar. A crude drawing showed a circle of rail spikes, blood-soaked, around the locomotive's engine, a vow to trap Eleanor's soul. The final entry, smeared with soot, read, I failed. She's stronger. My blood wasn't enough. Clara's pulse spiked, her pen scratching. Samuel's ritual, blood and spikes in locomotive. Needs Caldwell's blood. The train was Eleanor's body, the locomotive her heart, and the journal was a map to cage her. But the growl warned Eleanor was ready to fight. The fog outside thickened, and the windows pulsed with green light, revealing faces. Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in gray, pressed against the glass, their hollow eyes pleading, their hands leaving glowing prints that sizzled. Clara's stomach twisted, her voice fierce. They're not gone, Caldwell. They're trapped, begging us to finish this. Caldwell recoiled, his hand clutching his knife. You don't get it. She'll take us both. My blood's cursed, same as Samuel's. The train jolted, the growl swelling, and the last carriage's door cracked open. A sliver of green light spilling through, Eleanor's claws scraping, her voice a command. Clara, give me him. Clara grabbed Caldwell's arm, pulling him toward the corridor, the journal her guide. We're going to the locomotive. Your blood, the spikes, the vow. We cage her or die trying. The passage was a freezer, the walls slick with black ichor that dripped like blood. The growl vibrating through the floor. The faces outside followed, their whispers joining Eleanor's. Help us. Bind her. Clara's flashlight caught a new relic on the floor, a rusted rail spike, identical to the one she'd shattered, its tip stained with fresh blood. Her heart pounded as she grabbed it, its heat searing, and a vision hit. Samuel in the locomotive, 1924, bleeding on his spikes, his vow failing as Eleanor's claws tore him apart. The vision shifted, showing Clara and Caldwell, a circle of spikes glowing, Eleanor's soul caged, but Clara's blood spilling, her eyes hollow. The vision snapped, and Clara gasped, her notebook trembling as she wrote. Spike reappears, vision of ritual. My blood risks me. The locomotive was 2 cars ahead, but the passage to the last carriage glowed brighter, Eleanor's silhouette lunging, her claws grazing Caldwell's back, drawing blood. He screamed, collapsing, and Clara dragged him forward, the spike in one hand, the journal in the other. The train tilted, the walls buckling, and the faces outside pounded the windows, their hands cracking glass, their voices desperate. Now. Clara reached the locomotive's door, rusted but unlocked, and shoved it open, the engine's heat a blast of fire and iron. The control panel loomed, a tangle of levers and gauges, and beneath it, a hidden compartment, glowing faintly, where Samuel's ritual had failed. Clara's pen scratched. Locomotive, ritual's altar. Eleanor's coming. The growl became a scream, Eleanor's silhouette filling the passage, her claws reaching, and Clara knew the ritual was their last chance. But her blood was the curse's price, and Eleanor was hungry. The Midnight Express's scream tore through the locomotive. Eleanor Vance's silhouette, a towering inferno of charred flesh and hollow eyes. Her claws scraping the passage's walls as she surged toward Clara Henshaw and E. Caldwell. The locomotive's heart, a tangle of levers, gauges, and glowing iron, pulsed with heat. Its hidden compartment beneath the control panel radiating a faint green shimmer. The altar for Samuel Vance's failed ritual. Clara clutched the blood-stained rail spike, its searing warmth a match for the journal in her other hand. Samuel scripted a desperate map to cage Eleanor's soul. The air was a furnace of rusted iron, ash, and blood. The fog outside Blackthorn Valley pressing against the cracked windows were the faces of the trapped souls. Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in gray, glowed, their hands pounding. Their whispers a frantic chorus. Now, bind her. Clara's notebook hung open in her bag, the scrawl locomotive, ritual's altar. Eleanor's coming a stark warning. Caldwell's bloodied back dripped onto the iron floor, his face ashen, his voice a gasp. "Do it, Henshaw, or we're hers." The charred photo of Eleanor in Clara's pocket burned. Her whisper a venomous command. "Clara, your blood mine." Clara's hazel eyes locked onto the compartment, her journalist's mind racing despite the terror clawing her chest. Samuel's journal detailed the ritual, a circle of blood and iron, the betrayer's blood, a vow to cage her. And the spike was the key, a relic of Mile 47's derailment, reborn to anchor the curse. Her blood, marked by the earlier ritual, made her a target, but Caldwell's, as Samuel's heir, was the binding force. The faces outside surged, their pounding cracking the windows, glass shards falling like teeth. Clara kicked open the compartment, revealing a rusted panel etched with Samuel's initials, SV, and a faint circle of dried blood, his failed attempt to trap Eleanor. "The spikes," Clara said, her voice fierce, shoving the journal at Caldwell. "We need more like the drawing." Caldwell's trembling hand pulled 2 more spikes from his belt. Relics of the train's maintenance, their tips dull but heavy. The train lurched, the locomotive's heat intensifying, the green shimmer flaring as Eleanor's claws reached the doorway. Her scream a deafening roar that shook the iron walls. Clara arranged the spikes in a circle around the compartment, their tips touching, mimicking Samuel's sketch. She slashed her palm with Caldwell's knife, her blood mixing with his as she smeared it on the spikes, the metal sizzling, glowing white-hot. "Eleanor Vance," Clara shouted, her voice raw. "I offer the betrayer's blood. Your pain, your cage." Caldwell joined her, his voice hoarse, dripping blood onto the circle. "Samuel's sin, my blood, bind you to this iron." The spikes flared, the compartment pulsing, the soul's whispers surging. "Yes, trap her." Eleanor's silhouette lunged, her claws seizing Caldwell's arm, her eyes blazing, but the circle held, a barrier of light pushing her back. Clara's notebook trembled as she wrote, her hand shaking. Ritual begun, spikes, and bloodhold. Eleanor resists. The vision of Samuel's failure flashed, his blood too weak, his vow incomplete, but Clara saw the missing piece. The vow needed truth, not just blood. "Eleanor," she cried, her voice cutting through the scream, "Samuel betrayed you, locked you, let you burn for his lover. We confess it, bind you with his heir's blood." The circle burned brighter, the spikes melting into the iron, the compartment's glow blinding, the soul's hands clawing at Eleanor, dragging her toward the circle. Ruth's face was fierce, her milky eyes blazing. The grandmother's hands gripped, the salesman's form solid, their strength fueled by Clara's vow. Eleanor's scream became a wail, her form cracking, ash spilling like blood. The train tilted, the locomotive's walls buckling, the fog outside swirling, the faces vanishing as the souls poured into the circle, their whispers a command. "Bind her now." Caldwell collapsed, his arm blistered, his blood pooling, his voice a plea. "Finish it, Henshaw." Clara grabbed the journal, its pages crumbling, and read Samuel's final vow. "By my blood, I cage you, forever." She shouted, her voice breaking. "By our blood, we cage you, Eleanor, in this iron, forever." The circle erupted, the spikes dissolving, the compartment sealing with a deafening clang, the green glow collapsing into the iron. Eleanor's silhouette shattered, her wail fading, the soul's forms vanishing, their whispers silent. The train stabilized, the heat fading, the air clearing, but the locomotive was still the iron cold. Clara fell to her knees, her wrist bleeding, the journal ash in her hands. Caldwell's breathing was shallow, his eyes glazed. "Is it done?" he whispered. Clara's eyes fixed on the compartment, now smooth, no trace of the circle. Her notebook fell open, and she wrote, "Ritual complete, Eleanor caged." Soul's gone. The train rolled on, its rhythm steady. But the silence was heavy, the photo in her pocket cold, Eleanor's eyes dim. The windows showed Blackthorn Valley, the fog lifting, no faces, no glow. Clara helped Caldwell up, his weight heavy, and they staggered to the dining car. The cracks in the windows sealed, the air clean. The ritual had worked, Eleanor's soul caged in the locomotive's iron. But Clara's blood was the seal. And a faint whisper lingered, not Eleanor's, but her own doubt. Forever? The train's hum was gone, the last carriage's door locked, its presence mute. Clara's pen trembled as she wrote, Caldwell alive, train normal. Am I free? The Midnight Express was a shell, its curse bound, but the iron felt alive, watching. Clara knew she'd board again to check the locomotive, to ensure Eleanor stayed caged, her blood the lock, her resolve the key. The photo was still, but Clara's heart wasn't. The train silence a question she couldn't answer yet. Chapter 13, The Betrayer's Truth. Clara Henshaw's breath fogged in the dim dining car. The Midnight Express rolling steadily through the fading fog of Blackthorn Valley. Its wheels grinding a muted rhythm that felt too normal, too quiet. The air was clean, stripped of ash, blood, and rotting flowers, leaving only a faint, sterile chill, like a hospital after hours. Her notebook lay open on a scarred table, the scrawl ritual complete, Eleanor caged. Souls gone trembling in the flickering light of the emergency lamps. The conductor's whistle was a cold weight in her pocket, its power spent, and the charred photo of Eleanor Vance was silent, its edges cool, her hollow eyes dimmed but not empty. Clara's wrist throbbed, the blisters from Eleanor's touch a faint scar, her bloodied palm bandaged with a torn cloth. E. Caldwell slumped across from her, his blistered arm wrapped, his face gaunt, his bright eyes dulled by exhaustion and fear. The locomotive's sealed compartment, where Eleanor's soul was caged, pulsed faintly in Clara's mind, a lock forged by their blood and Samuel Vance's journal. But the train's silence was a fragile truce, and Clara's journalist's mind refused to trust it. The dining car's cracked windows were sealed, the fog outside thinning to reveal a desolate stretch of tracks. No marker, no glowing faces. Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in gray. Only moonlight glinting on iron. The last carriage's door was locked, its presence mute, but Clara's hazel eyes flicked to the corridor, her heart heavy with doubt. The ritual had worked. Eleanor's soul bound to the locomotive's iron. The souls freed, their whispers silenced. But the photo's faint warmth, the train's too perfect calm, and her own blood, marked by the vow, suggested the curse wasn't gone, only contained. Samuel's journal, now ash, had revealed his betrayal, his failed vow to trap Eleanor. And Caldwell's blood had sealed the new ritual, but Clara's role as the seeker, the one who dared to challenge, felt unfinished. Her pen scratched, Caldwell alive, train normal. Am I free? Caldwell stirred, his voice a rasp. You think it's over, Henshaw? She's in that iron waiting. His eyes darted to the corridor, as if expecting Eleanor's claws to emerge. Clara's jaw tightened, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. She's caged, not gone. The journal said Samuel tried to bind her, failed because his blood wasn't enough. Yours was, but we need to know why he failed. Caldwell's face paled, his hand trembling as he touched his bandage. You want to dig deeper? After all this? My great-grandfather was a coward, locked her in that carriage, let her burn for his lover. His guilt started it. I paid for it. What more is there? Clara leaned forward, her eyes fierce. The truth. Why the train? Why does it keep running, even now? The train jolted, the lights flickering, and a soft thud came from the corridor, like something heavy falling. Clara's pulse spiked, her hand on the whistle, though it was useless now. She stood, her boots soft on the carpet, and moved to the passage, Caldwell staggering behind. The air grew colder, the sterile chill sharpening to a faint metallic tang, like blood on iron. The last carriage's door was locked, but the passage floor was marked, a faint trail of ash, glowing dimly, leading to the locomotive. Clara's heart pounded as she followed it. her notebook trembling as she wrote, "Ash Trail to Locomotive." Eleanor's presence? The trail stopped at the locomotive's door, rusted but warm, and a new relic lay there. A single, scorched page from Samuel's journal, its script jagged. "She's in the iron, but my lover's vow keeps her strong." I didn't know. Clara's stomach lurched, her pen scratching. Samuel's lover. Vow strengthens curse. The page was a confession, revealing a hidden truth. Samuel's lover, safe in 1923, had made a vow, perhaps to protect him, that fueled Eleanor's curse. Tying it to the train's eternal run. Caldwell's eyes widened, his voice a whisper. "My family never said a lover's vow. That's why it never stopped." Clara's mind raced. The vision of the derailment flashing. Samuel's lover, smug, safe, her face a shadow. "Your blood caged, Eleanor," Clara said, "but the lover's vow is the root. We need to break it, or she'll wake." The train's rhythm faltered, the metallic tang growing, and a low moan rose, not from the last carriage, but from the locomotive, Eleanor's voice faint. "Clara, you see." Clara pushed into the locomotive, the heat a blast of iron and fire, the sealed compartment glowing faintly, a crack forming in its surface. She grabbed Caldwell, her voice fierce. "You're the last, Vance. Confess her role, the lover's vow, everything." Caldwell nodded, his knife trembling as he slashed his palm, blood dripping onto the compartment. "Eleanor, my great-grandfather's lover vowed to keep you bound, to protect him. I break it with my blood, his heir." The compartment flared, the crack widening, and Eleanor's scream erupted. Shaking the locomotive, the ash trail burning, the souls' faces, Ruth, the grandmother, the salesman, flickering in the glow, their hands reaching, pleading, "Break it now." Clara's notebook fell, her pen scratching, lover's vow broken, Eleanor fights. The train tilted, the windows fogging, the faces outside returning, their pounding relentless. Eleanor's silhouette surged from the crack, her claws grazing Clara's arm, a jolt of ice and fire. Clara shouted, her voice raw, "Eleanor, your cage holds. The vow's gone." The compartment sealed, the glow fading, Eleanor's scream softening, the souls vanishing. The train stabilized, the air clearing, but Clara's blood dripped, her vow still binding her. She wrote, "Curse weakened, lover's vow gone. Am I still marked?" The Midnight Express rolled on, Eleanor caged, but Clara's doubt was a shadow, the train's iron alive, watching, waiting for her to falter. The Midnight Express's iron walls seemed to pulse as Clara Henshaw steadied herself in the locomotive. The sealed compartment's faint glow a cold reminder of Eleanor Vance's caged soul. The train rolled through the thinning fog of Blackthorn Valley, its wheels grinding a steady rhythm that felt too alive, too watchful. The air was sharp with rusted iron and a faint, lingering tang of blood, the sterile chill now undercut by a subtle warmth, like breath on glass. Clara's notebook lay open on the locomotive's floor, its pages trembling, the scrawl curse weakened. Lover's vow gone. Am I still marked? A question that gnawed at her core. The conductor's whistle was a dead weight in her pocket, its power spent, and the charred photo of Eleanor was cool but heavy, her hollow eyes silent yet unyielding. E. Caldwell slumped against a gauge panel, his blistered arm oozing through his bandage, his bloodied knife glinting, his face etched with exhaustion. Clara's wrist burned, the blisters from Eleanor's touch a scar, her bloodied palmacille on the ritual that bound her to the curse. The train was a living prison, and Clara's hazel eyes, fierce with a journalist's resolve, searched the shadows, her doubt a splinter she couldn't pull. The locomotive's heat had faded, but the compartment's glow pulsed faintly, a heartbeat that synced with the train's rhythm. Caldwell's confession, breaking the lover's vow that fueled Eleanor's curse, had weakened her, the soul's faces, Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in gray, vanishing as the compartment sealed. But Clara's blood, mixed with Caldwell's, had marked her deeper. Her vow from the first ritual a chain that Eleanor's silence didn't break. The last carriage's door was locked, its presence muted, but the train's iron felt alive, its calm a predator's pause. Clara's pen scratched. Eleanor caged. Train watches. My blood binds me. She turned to Caldwell, her voice low but firm. We broke the lover's vow, but I'm still part of this. Why? Caldwell's eyes, dull with pain, met hers, his voice a rasp. You vowed to unbind her. Henshaw, your blood's in the iron now, same as mine. She's caged, but you're her keeper. Clara's stomach twisted. The vision of herself, trapped in the last carriage, eyes hollow, flashing in her mind. The ritual had caged Eleanor, but her vow had made Clara the lock, her blood a tether to the trained soul. The photo stirred, its warmth returning, and a faint whisper, not Eleanor's but her own, echoed. Forever. The train jolted, the lights flickering, and a soft scrape came from the compartment. Like nails on iron, slow and deliberate. Clara's pulse spiked, her hand on the whistle, useless but instinctive. She approached the compartment, its glow brighter, a crack reappearing, oozing black ichor that smelled of fire and death. Her pen scratched, compartment stirs, ichor leaks. Eleanor tests cage. The scrape grew louder, and a shadow moved within the crack. Eleanor's silhouette, faint, her claws testing the seal, her eyes glinting with hunger. Caldwell staggered to his feet, his knife trembling. She's not done, he whispered, his voice breaking. Your blood's calling her. Clara's jaw tightened, her mind racing. The journal was gone, but Samuel's failure, his blood too weak, his vow incomplete, suggested a way to sever her bond. We break the vow, she said, her voice fierce. Mine, from the first ritual. It's what ties me. Caldwell's eyes widened, his hand clutching his bandage. Break it? That's blood magic, Henshaw. You need her relics, your blood, and a renunciation. But she'll fight hard. The train tilted, the compartment's glow flaring. The ichor dripping faster, pooling on the floor, forming a faint circle, as if Eleanor were drawing it. Clara grabbed her bag, empty but for the photo, and placed it in the circle, her bloodied palm dripping onto it, the ichor sizzling. Eleanor Vance, she said, her voice raw. I renounce my vow to unbind you. My blood is mine, not yours. The circle flared, the ichor burning, and Eleanor's scream erupted, shaking the locomotive, the compartment's crack widening, her claws reaching, grazing Clara's arm, a jolt of ice and fire. A vision hit, Clara in the last carriage. Her vow forging the chain, Eleanor's soul feeding on her blood. The vision showed her renouncing it, her blood burning, but Eleanor's claws tore her apart, her soul joining the others. The vision snapped, and Clara gasped, her pen scratching. Renounced vow, Eleanor fights. Blood burns. The souls' faces flickered in the windows, their hands pressing, their whispers desperate. Break it, free yourself. Caldwell lunged, his knife slashing his palm, blood mixing with Clara's in the circle. I renounce Samuel's sin. My blood's tied to you, he shouted, his voice hoarse. The circle erupted, the ichor evaporating, the compartment's glow dimming, Eleanor's scream fading to a wail. The souls' faces surged, Ruth's eyes blazing, the grandmother's hands gripping, pulling Eleanor's silhouette back into the crack. The compartment sealed, the glow gone, the train stabilizing, but Clara's wrist bled, her vow broken, but her blood still warm, as if the train held a piece of her. Her notebook trembled as she wrote. Vow broken, Eleanor caged tighter. Blood still binds? The dining car's lights flared, the windows clear, the fog gone. But the train's iron pulsed, Eleanor's photo cool, but heavy, a silent question. Clara helped Caldwell to his seat, his breathing shallow, his eyes wary. You're free, he whispered, but his tone doubted it. Clara's eyes fixed on the corridor, the last carriage silent, but the train's rhythm felt alive, watching. She wrote, Train holds my blood, cursed dormant, not dead. The Midnight Express was a cage, Eleanor bound, but Clara's blood was its lock, and she knew she'd never leave its shadow, the iron her prison, the photo her chain. Eleanor's silence, a promise of return. Chapter 14, The Final Stop. Clara Henshaw's bloodied palm pulsed as she steadied herself in the dining car. The Midnight Express gliding through the last wisps of Blackthorn Valley's fog, its wheels grinding a rhythm that felt too deliberate, too alive. The air was cold and sterile, the metallic tang of iron now faint, but a subtle undercurrent of ash lingered, like a scar on the train's breath. Her notebook lay open on a scarred table, its pages trembling. The scrawled "Train holds my blood." Curse dormant, not dead, a stark confession of her tether to the curse. The conductor's whistle was a cold relic in her pocket, its power spent, and the charred photo of Eleanor Vance was heavy, its cool surface a lie hiding the faint warmth of her hollow eyes. E. Caldwell slumped across from her, his blistered arm bandaged, his face gaunt, his breathing shallow but steady, his bright eyes dim with the weight of survival. Clara's wrist burned, the blisters from Eleanor's touch a scar, her blood the lock that caged Eleanor's soul in the locomotive's iron. Her hazel eyes scanned the corridor, the last carriage's locked door silent but watchful, her journalist's resolve clashing with a gnawing dread. The curse was bound, but her blood was its chain, and the train was far from free. The dining car's lights flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to pulse, as if the train's iron were testing her. The windows showed a desolate stretch of tracks, the fog gone, moonlight glinting on rails that stretched toward Raleigh, the train's supposed destination. But Clara's vow, broken in the locomotive, hadn't severed her bond. Her blood, mixed with Caldwell's, had caged Eleanor tighter, yet the train's rhythm felt alive, its silence a predator's pause. The photo stirred, its warmth faint but growing, and Eleanor's whisper, though muted, slithered through her mind. "Clara, you're mine." Clara's pen scratched. Eleanor caged, but train's alive. "My blood's the lock." She turned to Caldwell, her voice low but fierce. "We bound her, but I'm still tied to this. How do we end it completely?" Caldwell's eyes met hers, his voice a rasp. "You don't, Henshaw. The train's her body. Your blood's in it now, same as mine. We're part of it, forever." Clara's stomach twisted, the vision of herself, trapped in the last carriage, eyes hollow, flashing in her mind. The souls, Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in gray, were gone, their whispers silenced, but the train's iron held Eleanor's soul, and Clara's blood was its keeper. She stood, her boots heavy, and moved to the corridor, Caldwell's warning echoing. "You're part of it." The passage was cold, the walls dry but vibrating faintly, the last carriage's door locked, its surface smooth, no claw marks. Clara pressed her hand to it, expecting cold metal, but it was warm, almost alive, and a faint hum stirred. Not Eleanor's, but the train's, synced with her pulse. Her pen scratched, door warm. "Train hums with me." Curse in the iron. A soft thud broke the silence, coming from her bag, slung over her shoulder. Clara's heart pounded as she opened it, finding a new relic, a single, rusted ticket stub dated November 3rd, 1923, marked last carriage, C. Henshaw. Her breath caught, her name on the ticket a chilling lie, as if the train had claimed her from the start. The stub was warm, its edges glowing faintly, and a vision hit. The 1923 derailment, Eleanor's blood soaking the tracks. But now Clara saw herself, standing in the last carriage, her blood dripping. The train's iron absorbing it, Eleanor's eyes watching, her voice a promise. "You'll never leave." The vision shifted, showing Clara derailing the train, the iron shattering. Eleanor's soul freed, but consuming her. The vision snapped, and Clara gasped, her pen scratching. "Ticket with my name, vision of derailment. My blood and iron." Caldwell staggered to her side, his eyes wide at the ticket. "She's marked you, Henshaw. That ticket, it's her claim." Clara's jaw tightened, her mind racing. The train was Eleanor's body, its iron her soul, and Clara's blood was the lock. The only way to end it was to destroy the train itself, but the vision warned her blood would be the price. "We derail it," she said, her voice steady despite the fear. "Break the iron, free her soul, and end this." Caldwell recoiled, his voice a hiss. "Derail it? We're on it, you fool. She'll take you with it." The train jolted, the hum swelling, and the last carriage's door rattled, a low growl escaping. Eleanor's silhouette faintly visible, her claws scraping, her voice a command. "Clara, finish it, or join me." Clara grabbed Caldwell, pulling him to the locomotive, her notebook trembling as she wrote. "Plan to derail, risks my blood." The passage was a tunnel of cold, the walls pulsing, the hum sinking with her heartbeat. The locomotive's heat hit her like a wall, the sealed compartment glowing faintly, its cracks sealed but trembling. Clara found the control panel, its levers rusted but functional, and studied the gauges, her journalist's mind piecing together the train's mechanics. "We force it off the tracks," she said, her voice fierce. A sharp turn, full speed, near Raleigh. The iron breaks, her soul's freed. Caldwell's hand shook, his knife glinting. "And us? You think we'll walk away?" Clara's eyes met his, her resolve iron. "We might not, but she ends." The train accelerated, the hum roaring, and the compartment's glow flared, Eleanor's growl swelling, her silhouette surging through the crack, her claws reaching. Clara slammed a lever. The train speeding, the tracks screaming, the windows fogging, the souls' faces flickering, their whispers desperate. "Do it, free us." Her pen scratched. Derailing, Eleanor fights. Souls urge. The locomotive shook, the iron groaning, and Eleanor's scream erupted, her claws grazing Clara's arm, a jolt of ice and fire. Clara's blood dripped, the train drinking it, and she knew the derailment was her sacrifice, her blood the price to break the iron and end Eleanor's curse. The Midnight Express roared toward Raleigh, its wheels screaming against the tracks as Clara Henshaw gripped the locomotive's lever, her bloodied palms slick with sweat and iron. The compartment's sealed glow pulsed violently. Eleanor Vance's scream, a deafening wail that shook the iron walls, her charred silhouette surging through the crack, her claws slashing the air inches from Clara's face. The air was a furnace of rusted iron, ash, and blood, the faint green shimmer from the last carriage's locked door flooding the locomotive, casting shadows that writhed like flames. Clara's notebook lay open on the floor, its pages trembling, the scrawl derailing. Eleanor fights. Souls urge a desperate testament to her plan. The conductor's whistle was a cold relic in her pocket. Useless now, and the charred photo of Eleanor burned, its heat searing, her hollow eyes alive with rage. "E." Caldwell clung to a gauge panel, his blistered arm dripping blood, his face a mask of terror, his voice a rasp. "You'll kill us, Henshaw." The train's iron groaned, the tracks buckling, and the fog outside thickened. The souls' faces, Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in gray, pressing against the windows, their glowing hands cracking glass, their whispers a chorus. "Break it, free us." Clara's hazel eyes burned with resolve. Her journalist's mind locked on the derailment, the only way to shatter the train's iron and sever Eleanor's soul. Her blood, marked by the ritual, was the lock and the vision, her blood spilling. Eleanor consuming her, warned of the price. The ticket stub with her name, C. Henshaw, 1923, was a claim, but Clara would turn it against Eleanor, breaking the train to end the curse. She slammed another lever, the engine roaring, the speedometer spiking, the tracks screaming as the train hurtled toward a sharp curve outside Raleigh. "Hold on," she shouted, her voice raw, her wrist throbbing, the blisters from Eleanor's touch splitting, blood dripping onto the iron floor, the train drinking it like a predator. Her pen scratched, trembling. Full speed, curve ahead. Eleanor's soul in iron. Eleanor's scream became a roar, the compartment's crack exploding, her silhouette solid, her claws seizing Caldwell's arm, his blood sizzling as she pulled him toward the void. Clara lunged, yanking him back, her blood mixing with his, the iron floor glowing, the soul's whispers surging. Now. The train tilted, the curve looming, and Clara threw her weight against the lever, forcing the engine to its limit. The windows shattered, the fog pouring in, the soul's hands reaching, Ruth's milky eyes fierce. The grandmother's grip iron, pulling at Eleanor's form. Clara's notebook fell, her pen scratching. Derailment begins, souls fight Eleanor. The iron walls buckled, the tracks snapping, and the train lurched, its front wheels lifting, the locomotive twisting, Eleanor's claws grazing Clara's chest, a jolt of ice and fire that burned her soul. A vision hit, final and vivid. The 1923 derailment, Eleanor's blood forging the curse, but now Clara saw the train's iron shattering, Eleanor's soul tearing free, her scream fading, the souls, Ruth, the grandmother, the salesman, vanishing into light. Clara's blood spilled, her body broken, but Eleanor's eyes dimmed, the curse ended. The vision snapped, and Clara gasped, the train airborne, the world spinning. The iron screaming as it tore apart. She grabbed Caldwell, shoving him to the floor, her body shielding his, her blood soaking the iron, the compartment's glow collapsing. Eleanor's silhouette fracturing, her scream a wail. Clara, no. The souls surged, their hands dragging Eleanor into the void, their whispers of farewell. Thank you, free. The train crashed. The locomotive crumpling, iron shards flying, the tracks a twisted wreck. Silence fell, heavy and absolute, the fog clearing, moonlight bathing the wreckage. Clara's eyes fluttered open, her body aching, blood pooling beneath her but alive. Caldwell groaned beside her, his arm broken, his face pale but breathing. The last carriage was gone, its iron dust. The compartment a shattered husk, Eleanor's soul silent. Clara's notebook was lost in the wreck, but her mind etched the final words. Train broken, Eleanor gone, souls freed. The photo in her pocket was ash, its weight gone, Eleanor's eyes closed forever. The tracks were still, Blackthorn Valley empty. The curse ended, but Clara's blood was the price, her body weak. Her breath shallow. She staggered to her feet, helping Caldwell stand, his eyes wide with disbelief. It's over, he whispered, his voice trembling. Clara's gaze swept the wreckage, the iron cold. The train's pulse dead. Maybe, she said, her voice faint, her wrist no longer burning, but her blood felt thin, as if the train had taken a piece of her. The fog was gone. Raleigh's lights faint in the distance, a world beyond the curse. Clara walked, Caldwell limping beside her, the tracks behind them silent, but a faint hum stirred in her mind, not Eleanor's, but her own doubt, a whisper that the iron might remember her blood, waiting for another train, another night. She pushed it away, her resolve iron, her sacrifice enough. But the moonlight glinted on a single, rusted rail spike, lying in the gravel, unmarked, watching. Chapter 15, Beyond the Tracks. Clara Henshaw's boots sank into the gravel beside the wreckage of the Midnight Express. The twisted iron of the derailed train glinting under the pale moonlight of Blackthorn Valley. The air was cold and sharp, stripped of ash, blood, and the rotting flowers that had haunted her journey, leaving only a faint, earthy dampness like soil after rain. Her body ached, her bloodied palm and wrist throbbing. The blisters from Eleanor Vance's touch now a dull scar, but she was alive, her breath clouding in the chill. Caldwell limped beside her, his broken arm cradled, his face pale, his breathing ragged but steady, his eyes wide with a fragile relief. The last carriage was gone, its iron reduced to dust, the locomotive a crumpled husk, its sealed compartment shattered, Eleanor's soul silenced. Clara's notebook was lost in the wreckage. Her final mental note, train broken, Eleanor gone, Souls freed, etched in her mind. The charred photo of Eleanor was ash. Its weight lifted, but a single rusted rail spike gleamed in the gravel. Unmarked, a silent question that stirred Clara's doubt. Her hazel eyes scanned the horizon, her journalist's resolve clashing with a lingering dread. The curse was ended. But her blood had been the price, and the tracks felt too still, too watchful. The valley was a desolate expanse, the fog gone, Raleigh's distant lights a faint promise of escape. The souls, Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in gray, were absent, their glowing faces and desperate whispers freed in the derailment's chaos. Their hands pulling Eleanor into the void. Caldwell's blood, as Samuel Vance's heir, had broken the lover's vow, and Clara's, marked by her own vow, had shattered the train's iron, severing Eleanor's hold. But the rail spike, untouched by the crash, was a splinter in Clara's mind, a remnant of Mile 47's curse, as if the tracks remembered her blood. She knelt, her fingers hovering over the spike, its metal cold but heavy, no glow, no whisper, yet its presence felt alive, like a seed waiting to sprout. A mental note sharpened. Spike remains. Curse truly gone? She left it, standing, her resolve firm but her heart unsteady. Caldwell's voice broke the silence, a hoarse whisper. "We did it, Henshaw. She's gone. Why don't you look sure?" Clara's gaze met his, her voice low. "The train's dead, but the iron's hers. My blood's in it, Caldwell. I feel it." He frowned, his hand trembling as he touched his bandage. "You're alive, ain't you? That's more than my family got. Samuel, my grandfather, my father, they all died for her. You won." Clara's jaw tightened. The vision of herself, eyes hollow, trapped in the last carriage, fading but not gone. "Maybe," she said, her eyes drifting to the tracks, where the spike glinted a silent challenge. The derailment had been her sacrifice, her blood the key, but the train's silence was a lie, the iron's memory a whisper she couldn't shake. A faint hum stirred, not from the tracks but from the valley, a low vibration that synced with her pulse. Clara froze, her hand on the whistle, cold and useless, her heart pounding. The hum wasn't Eleanor's, but it wasn't natural. A ripple in the air that felt like the train's ghost, watching. A shadow moved in the distance, not a soul, but a figure, indistinct, walking the tracks toward Raleigh. Clara's breath caught, her voice shaking. "Caldwell, you see that?" He squinted, his face paling. "Nothing's there, Henshaw. You're spooked." But the figure lingered, its edges blurring, and a vision hit, brief but vivid. A new train, not the Midnight Express, rolling through Blackthorn Valley, its iron gleaming, Clara's blood in its wheels, a ticket in her hand, her name scrawled. C. Henshaw, last carriage. The vision snapped, and Clara gasped, her mental note burning. "New train, my blood calls it." The figure vanished, the hum fading, and Clara's legs trembled, her resolve wavering. "It's not over," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the spike. "The curse is gone, but the iron remembers. Another train's coming, someday." Caldwell's voice was sharp, almost angry. "You're paranoid. We broke it. Henshaw, let go." But Clara's blood felt thin, as if the tracks had drunk a piece of her, her sacrifice binding her to something beyond Eleanor. She turned toward Raleigh, the lights closer now, a mile away, and started walking, Caldwell limping beside her, the spike left behind but its weight in her mind. Her pen was gone, her notebook lost, but her mental note was clear. Raleigh, escape, but iron waits. I'm its keeper. The valley was silent, no moan, no growl, but the moonlight glinted on the tracks, a path that felt alive, leading her forward and back. Clara's blood was the lock, her resolve the key, and though Eleanor was caged, the iron's memory was eternal, waiting for a new train to call her name. She'd reach Raleigh, write her story, expose the truth. But the tracks would never let her go, their whisper her own. "Clara, you'll board again. The moonlight cast long shadows across Blackthorn Valley as Clara Henshaw trudged toward Raleigh's distant lights, her boots crunching gravel beside the silent tracks. Each step a battle against the weight of her own blood. The Midnight Express's wreckage lay behind her, its iron corpse scattered, the last carriage reduced to dust. Eleanor Vance's soul caged and shattered. The air was cold and clean, the damp earth scent now faintly tinged with a metallic edge, like a blade left in the rain. Clara's wrist ached, the blisters from Eleanor's touch a muted scar, her bloodied palm bandaged but pulsing, as if the tracks still drank from her. Caldwell limped at her side, his broken arm cradled, his face gaunt, his voice a hoarse whisper. "You keep looking back, Henshaw. It's done." But Clara's hazel eyes flicked to the rusted rail spike, glinting in the gravel, its presence a silent taunt, a seed of doubt that rooted deep. The curse was broken. The souls, Ruth Carter, the grandmother, the salesman, the man in gray, freed, but the iron's memory held her blood. And the faint hum in her mind, not Eleanor's but the valley's, whispered, "Clara, you'll board again." Raleigh's lights grew closer, a mile away, but the tracks stretched beside her, their iron gleaming under the moon, alive with a subtle vibration that synced with her pulse. Clara's journalist mind churned, piecing together the derailment's cost. Her blood, spilled to break the train, had severed Eleanor's hold, but the vision, a new train, her name on a ticket, C. Henshaw, last carriage, warned of a legacy she couldn't escape. The spike, untouched by the crash, was a relic of Mile 47, a fragment of the curse's heart, and its refusal to vanish suggested the iron remembered her sacrifice. She'd write her story, expose the Midnight Express's truth, but the tracks would call her back, her blood a beacon for a new train, a new curse. Her mental note was sharp. "Raleigh, right, but iron's alive. I'm bound." A soft rustle broke the silence, like fabric dragging across stone, coming from the tracks ahead. Clara froze, her hand on the cold conductor's whistle, its power spent but a reflex. Caldwell squinted into the dark, his voice tense. "You hear that?" The rustle grew, and a shadow moved. Not a soul, but a figure, indistinct, walking the tracks, its edges blurring in the moonlight. Clara's heart pounded, her voice a whisper. "It's not her." But the figure paused, turning, its face hidden, and a faint glow pulsed from its hand. A ticket glinting, her name faintly visible. A vision hit, brief but searing. A gleaming train, not the Midnight Express, rolling through Blackthorn Valley, its last carriage empty, Clara boarding, her blood dripping, the iron waking. A new whisper calling, "You're home." The vision snapped, and the figure vanished, the rustle gone, the track still. Clara's breath trembled, her mental note burning. Figure with ticket. "New train coming. My blood's the key." She turned to Caldwell, his eyes wide, unseeing. "You didn't see it," she said, her voice hollow. He shook his head, his hand trembling. "You're haunted, Henshaw. Let it go." But Clara couldn't, her blood a chain to the iron, her sacrifice a vow she hadn't meant to keep. Raleigh loomed, its lights a false promise, and she walked on. The spike's glint fading behind, but its weight in her soul. The valley was silent, no moan, no growl, but the tracks hummed faintly, a rhythm only she felt, a call she'd answer someday. She'd write her story, live her life, but the iron waited, patient, her blood its keeper, the next train's destination unknown. The stars above Raleigh twinkled as Clara and Caldwell reached the city's edge, the tracks ending at a quiet station, no sign of Hollow Creek's decay. A single bench held a newspaper, dated May 28th, 2025, its headline mundane, no trace of the Midnight Express. Clara sat, Caldwell collapsing beside her, and found a ticket stub in her pocket. Not the 1923 relic, but a new one, blank, its edges warm. Her name faintly forming, C. Henshaw. She tucked it away, her mental note final. Ticket waits, iron calls. Will I board again? The station was still, the night calm, but Clara's blood pulsed. The tracks whisper a question without answer. The next train a shadow on her horizon. Thank you for joining this chilling journey with the ghosts on the midnight train. If you felt the pull of the tracks, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Eli Nightfall for more tales that haunt the night. Dare to board again?